In possibly the most shocking thing out of the Derek Chauvin trial in Minneapolis so far, George Floyd's girlfriend told the court, as she was being questioned by the defense, that one of the state's key witnesses, a guy named Maurice Lester Hall, was George Floyd and her dealer. And he was supposed to be testifying as one of the key witnesses for the state. Abruptly, apparently just the day before, this guy shocked the court by saying he wasn't going to testify. He wasn't going to be a witness. In fact, he's pleading the fifth. And this is just one big factor in the defense that we've seen so far that really makes it seem like, my friends, this is going to be, well, I'll put it this way. If there is a reasonable jury that's following the evidence the same way I am, as I'm watching the court same as them and hearing a lot of the same evidence, boy, it sure does sound at the very least like reasonable doubt across the board. I don't even think manslaughter can stick. I really don't. You've got, we're going to get into this story, but there's just so much to break down. A few months prior to this incident, George Floyd had OD'd and gone to the hospital, complaining of the exact same symptoms. Video showing George Floyd saying, "I can't breathe," before he was even restrained. I think the jury is going to see reasonable doubt unless politics gets in the way. So we're going to talk about all this stuff, and joining us today is none other than Michael Malice.
Thank you for having me, Tim.
You get shouted out too much on this show, so we were like, just tell him to come over.
Red Rover, bring Malice right over.
Say his name too many times and he's here in my
I'm
house.
like Beetlejuice and Candyman.
Yeah. Right, it's great.
Bees.
All right. And Ian's here.
I'm so glad you're here, Michael. Yes, and I'm sporting our new I Am a Gorilla Diamond Hands t-shirt. Let me see if I can get this in the frame.
There we go. Perfect.
The gorilla is back, and he's made a lot of money.
Indeed.
Well, because he knew not to sell his stonks
That's
too
right.
soon.
He had
diamond hands, but I suppose, like, you're not supposed to sell ever. I guess he waited till it got to the moon and then sold or something. I don't know the joke is. Whatever.
Okay.
It's a gorilla with money. Buy the shirt. Timcast.com/shop, and you can get yours. We've actually sold a ton of these. People love the Wall Street gorilla thing.
He's very charming.
Yeah.
He is, yeah. He's super
That's
cool.
right.
A nice smile.
And he knows the truth about Building 7.
Is that what? Yeah, is that it?
Mm-hmm.
He's in New York.
You
All
can
right,
tell by
all
how
right,
rich he
Michael.
is.
Well, that's what that's a reference to.
What?
I'm a gorilla.
No, it isn't. It was the Ishmael book.
Yeah, but that was Alex Jones saying it on this show.
Oh, I get it. I get
Yeah,
what
yeah,
you're saying.
yeah.
Right.
He was the I,
So-
and I'm a gorilla.
Yeah.
The secret is the original. I don't know if I should say this. The original drawing was proposed as Alex Jones saying it, and I said we can't do that because that's Alex Jones. Like his likeness, his business. We can't.
that's true, yeah.
Has to be an actual gorilla. But the original proposal that I got was like, so should we make an Alex Jones saying? I was like, no, we can't do that. It was hey, it's actually just a gorilla now. There you go. We got Lydia. She's chilling.
I'm also in the corner. Me and Michael always get up to no good when he's here. We have a lot of
You were
fun.
texting Lydia during one of our
Maybe.
episodes, and then getting her to shout you out.
She didn't shout me out. My good friend Ethan Suppley, who I am shouting
he's
out,
cool,
who
dude.
I
Yes,
adore.
yes.
Yeah.
He was on.
Yeah.
I'm pals with you. And I thought it'd be funny
Perfect storm,
if
yeah.
she asked, what do you guys like best about Michael Malice? And you all had easy answers. I'm very likable.
That's right. The most likable. There
Charming
you
My
go.
friends-
Beautiful.
We're going to get serious. And before we do, go to timcast.com and become a member because you will get access to exclusive members-only segments. We are very, very close to rolling out the brand new website. I got to tell you, it looks amazing. This company that's putting stuff together, it's actually fancy looking. And I actually just went over a treatment. This is like basically the elevator pitch for a TV series, which we might actually produce because we're going to get into the business of making culture and making shows and just being regular people that make fun things and get away from the weird culty woke stuff. So go to timcast.com, become a member. We got a bunch of special bonus segments, but it really does help in the event we get banned or whatever. This is where we'll have all of our content, and we got a lot more to come. So working on the vlog. The chickens are doing their chicken stuff. We're gonna make chicken cam. We're gonna put a live camera in the chicken city so that people can just tune in for no reason, just watch the chickens.
So cute.
I thought it would be
So into
hilarious.
That
They're
is,
the
but
best.
they have that kitten cam, they've had goat
Exactly.
cam, aquarium cam. It's relaxing. It's like
How amazing.
ASMR, right?
You'll get to watch the chickens drink the water, turn around, take a dump right in their water dish, and then start drinking from it again.
The rumors
it's,
are
it's,
true.
it's brilliant stuff watching
Beautiful.
chickens every day. I swear to God.
How do they drink? They have to like put a mouthful and then put the
Yeah.
head
Yeah,
up, right?
they like bite the water a little bit, nibble it, and then they flip their heads back.
Yeah.
And then like one of them will like stand up and pull its wings out and then just like dump right in the water and then turn around and start drinking again. Like right in the same spot. It's amazing how these things survived as long as they did.
Well, what about no? Okay, I'm gonna get all animal here. Okay, hold on. Gorillas. I worked on a book called The Paleo Manifesto with John Durant. I edited it, And there were gorillas in captivity, and the problem with the gorillas is they kept eating their poop, or they weren't eating their poop.
They weren't?
The problem is because you're eating vegetation, it's hard to break down.
Right.
So
Yeah,
rabbits,
recycle
cows, other animals, they eat their poop to get the more nutrition.
Hold on. Rabbits don't literally eat their poop. It's called something else. And apparently it's like there's like a gland next to it or something. I can't remember. I was reading about this because we had rabbits a few years ago.
They do eat their poop.
But it's not the same thing as poop.
Sure, it comes out of their butt though.
Yeah.
Rabbits eat the thing that comes out of their butt. That we,
Undigested.
It's a wad of cellulose and
Okay,
plant
yeah,
matter.
yeah.
Okay.
Whereas cows, huck it back up and then
Cut.
chew on it
Yeah.
and swallow it again. Okay, go to timcast.com because apparently
Great conversation.
yes, and you'll get exclusive segments like this. After the show, we'll have a members only segment. So go ahead and do it. Let's get serious, guys.
all about chicken husbandry.
Chicken husbandry. We don't have a rooster, and so it's really funny when like the cat walks up, the chickens don't know what to do. There's no rooster to be like, yo, get inside, run, the cat's
Wait,
coming.
I'm gonna get serious. Did you know there's a whole big controversy about chickens in? I think it's in Europe that they just banned, or in Japan, one of these countries.
banned chickens?
There's this book called Inside the Memory Palace, I think it was called, or something like that. The point is, when a chicken is born, a chick, right? All the people who breed chickens for food, they only want the females because
Right.
the roosters are tough.
Yeah.
So there are people whose job it is to take a newly hatched chick, squeeze its whatever
Junk.
its junk, and it looks very different, slightly different, excuse
Yeah.
me, when it's a male or female.
They're
And in
hard
that
to-
in that 1 second, they throw it into the shredder,
meat grinder.
or the meat grinder, or they put it aside, and that's their whole job.
Yeah.
People were complaining, animal rights people, you're killing 50% of the chicken population, and they just recently made it illegal.
Wow.
So now they're going to have all these surplus roosters. And the other thing I know about chickens, I feel like Joy Tribbiani when he got the encyclopedia and he got volume C. The other thing is, what was I going to say? I forgot already.
Something about roosters?
Roosters are hilarious, man. Chickens are funny. They're just funny to watch them do their chicken thing.
forgot.
They're great.
They run up to us because there's so many stink bugs out here. We just flick them in and then dude, it's like it's the size of a whole pizza to these things. You know what I mean? And now when we walk in, they run up to us, and then we try and like go and grab them. They freak out and run screaming. So it's just funny. Anyway, let's talk about
Right, you're supposed to
Chauvin.
say they're running around like chickens with their heads
That's
not
right.
cut off.
Yes.
Yeah, come on, you missed
not
your
cut
chance.
off.
You said they're bigger now. They're not
getting
chicks
big.
anymore.
They're pullets.
Pullets.
Yeah,
That's
they're
right.
Teenager chickens.
All right, enough chicken
Okay,
talk.
yes.
We got my friends. Smash the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell. We're really close to breaking 1 million. How did we just deviate for 5 minutes on chicken talk? I don't
Conversation
know.
is so good.
Let's talk about what's going on with the Chauvin trial. Check this out. We got this from the Daily Mail. George Floyd's girlfriend breaks down in court as she reveals they were both addicted to opioids, and the drugs were sold by his friend who refuses to testify at Derek Chauvin's murder trial. I'm just going to break this down for you. This guy, Maurice Lester Hall, a key witness for the state, filed a shock notice on Wednesday stating that he plans to invoke the Fifth against self-incrimination. Okay. The defense asked this woman, okay,
Right.
George Floyd's girlfriend, did George Floyd see Maurice Lester Hall a lot? Did he hang out with him a lot? And she was like, not a lot, every so often. Yeah, every so often.
Uh-huh.
She said she didn't like him. She apparently said in an affidavit, I think, because they showed her the paper saying you told the FBI this, or I think it was the FBI, that Floyd had purchased the pills from this guy. And so here we have it. Let's think about this. What's the kind of person that you're friends with that you only see from time to time, who sold you drugs in the past?
You?
What do you call that? What do
Tim?
you call it?
I call him Tim.
Okay, all right.
If anyone would,
Secret.
it's going to be you, not me.
Like a drug dealer.
Yeah,
Like a drug
yeah,
dealer?
that's exactly
A
what it
dealer.
sounded like.
Yeah.
I got a
Someone that-
man, yeah.
I got a guy.
Someone that
Yeah,
deals
yeah,
drugs.
yeah.
sounds
So
like.
George Floyd sitting in the
guy,
vehicle
yeah,
with this
guy.
guy. He's sitting in the vehicle with this guy.
The guy's in the car with them when they
Yes.
get.
And Judge Cahill said in September, back when they're like preparing this stuff, the evidence that was presented by defense, it looks like Floyd had a tablet in his mouth. The judge said that. So let's put these things together. The dude Maurice Lester Hall is in the shop on surveillance footage, and the Daily Mail pulled one of the clips, and he's dropping something in Floyd's hand. The clerk says
Wow.
Floyd looked like he was under the influence. He was like having trouble speaking, slurring his words. Floyd gets in the vehicle. He's with this guy. Then we have, what is this? Then we have, that is so annoying. when that
Welcome to
happens.
Windows.
Yeah.
I just upgraded from Windows 8.1 to 10. It was one of the scariest experiences of my life.
All right, well, let's try and get back to the seriousness. It's like all the
Stay
suspense is
focused.
building
Save it
up,
for
and
the
then
after show.
Windows goes boop,
Ding,
boop,
ding.
boop. All right, check it out.
That's him telling us we shouldn't talk about this.
Right. They're like,
Mr. Gates.
Yeah.
so Floyd's in the store with this guy, Maurice Lester Hall. Clerk says that he appears to be under the influence. You can see Maurice Lester Hall hand him something. Maybe he was giving him some change. We don't know what it was.
Sure.
There's no reason to assume, anything. And Floyd gets in the vehicle with him. They're in this SUV. The clerk said he took this counterfeit 20, and at first he was like, I'll eat it, because his boss was like, if you take counterfeit money, you got to pay for it. And then he thought about it and was like, I can't do that. Went to his manager and said, what do I do? He said, call the cops. When the cop approaches the vehicle, you can see it in the body camera footage. Floyd's got something on his tongue. We don't know what it is. The judge said, I think the judge said it looked like a tablet. It looked like something was on his tongue, and then it was gone. The defense brings this up. So now you have this circumstance. And when I saw that, I was like, dude, the toxicology report showed that he had 11 nanograms per milliliter of fentanyl in his system, 5.6 nanograms per milliliter of norfentanyl, which is a metabolite. It's a metabolite of fentanyl. My understanding in this context means that it's the fentanyl that's breaking down in his body. It could potentially be a precursor substance that people use, so we don't know for sure. But, Lydia pulled this up the other day on the show. When mixing drugs, a lethal dose of fentanyl can be 7 nanograms per milliliter. This guy had 11 and 5.6 of norfentanyl.
Can we talk about this for a second? Because I only learned today when Lydia picked me up from the airport why people actually use fentanyl. I had been under the impression, this is how much of a straight edge I am, that they're trying to buy heroin. Instead of getting heroin, they're getting fentanyl and they're getting killed. I didn't realize that people intentionally take fentanyl and it has some kind of a purpose. Can you explain that a little bit?
It's a medication. It's an opioid.
But so so it is used like kind of like Percocet or something like this.
My understanding is that it's a medication.
Okay.
But I'll say this outright, man, just to get started. This story breaks my heart. The story told by the girlfriend is that she and Floyd had chronic injury, chronic pain. Yeah. And so they were prescribed opioids. And then, like many Americans, they became addicted to it.
Prince, I think, died from it.
So after their prescriptions cleared, they have a physiological dependence to this. And then we criminalize the fact that they're hooked on something their doctor told them to take.
Can we also explain to people, like, because I've had my wisdom teeth, maybe other people haven't.
I have.
When you take like Percocet or something like this, they don't understand that it's a painkiller, but pain is obviously, it's not literally happening in your arm or your mouth. It's happening in your mind.
Yep.
Right.
So what these painkillers do, you're sitting there and it's like you're on a cloud. You know the expression, not feeling any pain. It affects your psychology and your mood, and you could be sitting just staring at Ian, staring at you, Tim, and just feeling really mellow and relaxed. And it's very easy to see how this can become hyper addictive, because if you tell someone all you have to do is take this pill and for hours you're just going to feel relaxed and happy and have pure bliss, you're not going to think, well, the doctor gave it to me. Yeah. Obviously, it can't be that dangerous. Why wouldn't I?
And then you get a physiological dependence.
And then, because what happens if you stop, it's kind of like stopping short in your car. I've had a friend who was a former heroin addict, and your body starts freaking out because it's not in a position to make that happy juice or serotonin, whatever it is. And now you're in panic because you're like, if I don't get that feeling back, like it's like fight or flight. Your body's it's very slippery, dangerous slope.
It's not just that. It's that you level out. Like the first time you take it, it feels really good. Eventually you normalize. Right. And if you stop taking it, you go down. So I had been prescribed Percocets several years ago, and I think they gave me like 15 or so. I took 2 and then I stopped.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. You know why? It was the greatest feeling. And I was like, I do not like this man.
And that stuff's light compared to fentanyl.
The way
is that right?
Yeah, fentanyl's super concentrated.
Yes.
Super,
yeah.
Wow.
So that's so listen. Here's a dude who is now in his car. He's OD'd before. He's scared. He's going to go to jail. The cops are here. Dude, I think it's insane that we criminalize people who have a physiological dependence after a doctor gave a medication. Right. Trump ran on this, ending the opioid crisis. Yeah. So now he panics, and it seems, based on the story, he was with his dealer. He was buying drugs. Cops showed up. He ate them. That's what it seems like.
But here's the other thing about decriminalization. Obviously I'm an anarchist and this is my view, but what people don't appreciate when we're talking about decriminalizing drugs, it's the harder drugs that are the most in need of decriminalization, because those are the most at-risk people who need to have access to resources, who need to not be worried about being locked in prison with rapists and murderers, who are the most, like when you're in that state of withdrawal, you're not thinking completely rationally. Your brain's only thought is make this feeling you're feeling go away right now. And after a while, you're stealing from your family, you're breaking into places, you're doing things you would never otherwise do. And it's easy to say, just go cold turkey. If anyone has had writer's block, If anyone's been at the gym and you don't feel like working out, imagine that times 1,000 because your brain is screaming at you, being very articulate. You need to do what you need to do to get this feeling back. So those are the people who need kind of help. And also it's very dangerous.
You can die.
Yeah, to put someone like
die.
this in prison.
Well, so if you're physiologically dependent from an addiction to something like opioids and you don't get it, you can die from withdrawal.
You absolutely can.
It's brutal, shocking pain. And so, look, he was driving. I get it, man. You break the law, you break the law.
Sure.
Right? And so I think what we need to do is we need to reform the system. The problem I have with this is now it's looking to me like Chauvin's going to get acquitted, and it's also looking like he should be. But it's also looking like the state is responsible for all of it. The problem here is that the state is prosecuting Chauvin as a scapegoat for their broken system with the war on drugs and for their broken policies where they train the police to do this maneuver with the knee. So if you got a problem with the knee on the neck, I hear you. It was the police that told him to do it. If you got a problem with Chauvin, with Floyd getting arrested, I agree, man. It's the war on drugs. Imagine if someone walked up and imagine if it wasn't a criminal act to be addicted or to be buying these substances, or at the very least you knew the penalty was a light stint in rehab or a clinic. Floyd would not have panicked the way he would. The chaos would not have ensued. I get it. There's a $20 bill. I can't believe someone lost their life over a $20 bill.
Let's talk a little further. All money's counterfeit. There's no reason for this $20 bill. It used to be backed by gold, meaning I can go to a store or whatever the bank and say, I want $20 worth of gold instead of this bill. FDR, when he became president, broke every contract in America unilaterally because the contract said, Tim, you're going to paint my house for $500 or the gold equivalent.
Right.
And if it was super inflation, I'm like, you know what? I don't want the 500. Give me the gold. FDR said all those clauses are illegal. Not only did he do that, he made it illegal for anyone to own gold.
Right.
So they really made sure that gold couldn't be used as a base of currency. And only now, let me just finish my thought. Only now, thanks to things like Ethereum, crypto, Bitcoin, are there ways for people to store money. It's not the same as gold, obviously, but these are a better store than politicians who could print at will. And if everyone listened to me and bought Ethereum when I was in the show and said to buy it, they would have been up like 2.5 times the money.
Dude,
All-time high,
dude,
I think,
yep.
as of yesterday. I
So
believe.
the glasses aren't just for show.
Dapper.
So, look, back to George Floyd. My view is I wish our criminal justice system was rehabilitative and not retribution or just punitive. Like, okay, we're mad you did this, so put him in a box.
Wait, can we talk about this also? I don't want to interrupt you. A lot of times conservatives are like, the guy point correctly. This guy pointed a gun at a pregnant woman during an armed robbery. It's like, well, if that's the case, then he shouldn't be on the street either. So no matter which way you cut it, this is a screwed up situation.
What, you mean Floyd did?
Yeah,
previously.
If someone is this much of a violent criminal, then they should at least be like, we have a sex offenders registry. Why is there not some kind of violent criminal offenders registry when someone's doing something that egregious?
Yeah, maybe. We were talking about gun control, and I said if you pay your debt to society, you get your gun back, you get your vote back. And so a lot of people said, yeah, but if you're violent, and I'm like, well, then if you've listen, so you're talking about an extended sentence. That's just not okay. By all means,
sure,
argue that. I'm saying literally, if they're like, you did this, so your punishment is 5 years. 5 years later, you get out. Congratulations. Here's your gun. Here's your voter registration ID card or whatever you need.
Right.
Well, they don't do voter ID, but you get the point.
Right.
So maybe there would be a list or so. I'm still not necessarily a big fan, but I understand the idea. And ultimately, what I'm saying is, listen.
The most violent criminals are always the presidents and the Senate because they're the ones who declare war.
Look,
how much blood is on their hands?
The state is at fault.
Yes.
They pay out.
And hold on. But they're the ones prosecuting right now. Imagine realizing this when the leftists chant the whole damn system is guilty as hell. I'm like, right here with you. We got a problem here. The war on drugs doesn't work. It's never worked. It's creating criminals out of victims. It's created look, I understand there's violent crime. I was tweeting up a storm during Trump saying Trump should pardon every nonviolent drug offender with some review because some might plead down. But the general idea is if you were a nonviolent drug offender, that's the only thing you did, get him out of there. Get him some help. Have someone give them a talking to and help them work through their withdrawals and their addictions. That's what I was all about. So the system is putting these people in prison, making them hardened criminals, making it so they can't vote. I think the system is broken. Now the problem is they're demanding the state that is at fault put Chauvin on trial, an individual officer working as an individual for the state who was told to do something by the state. I have a problem with that. If we as a community say we need people to be working on behalf of the state to enforce the law. And then the individual says, I'm willing to do that. And then we say, okay, but you have no legal protections in the event that we actually end up saying we don't like what the state is doing. Change the state itself, but don't as a community ask someone to do something and then get mad when they do it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just don't agree.
I know, you're an anarchist.
Yeah.
My point is like, most people seem to like the police. I know your opinion, and we'll definitely talk about it because I think it's a fascinating
I don't think
conversation.
that's factual, that most people like the police. I think it's very dependent on your environment.
Also, the
For
idea
sure.
of the
Yes,
police
big
and the
cities
individual
and-
police is
Yeah.
a different thing, too.
Yeah.
Yes, just like everyone hates politicians, but they like their congressman.
Yeah. So maybe, look, where I was in Chicago, nobody liked cops. Where I was...
Can I ask you, were they wrong? Are the cops in Chicago like kind, decent, normal people, or are they... Okay, there's my answer. No, but you know what I'm saying? Like when people
the
talk...
reputation of the police in Chicago. But let me
bad.
clarify. I had been saved from a mugging by cops where they literally grabbed the mugger and slammed him against a wall. And
You
know.
were only mugged because you're unarmed because of the police.
Yeah.
That mugging
That's
was
right.
caused
That's
by
actually
That's a great
we did it.
point.
So we did a bonus segment yesterday with Jack Murphy.
Are we
really
allowed to
good.
show that?
I don't know.
Okay, but whatever. There's
So-
guns
so-
and- yeah.
I wouldn't, yeah.
I guess you could call it that.
No, but my point is you're outspoken about not outspoken. Just you exercise your Second Amendment rights.
The other day on the bonus segment, you guys are going to want to watch this if you want to see me screaming at the top of my lungs.
yeah.
This is one of the best we've ever done.
Spicy.
I was basically
very
saying the problem with Chicago is that they banned guns. And so, long story short, Jack said about this incident in D.C. where this guy gets carjacked.
Yeah.
The car flips over and he dies. He should have just given the car up. And I said, no, he should not have just given his car up. And Jack made a good point. You know, don't you think his kids would prefer it if he lived, if he just gave that car away? And I said, if every single person looked dead in the eyes the criminal attempting to harass or oppress them and said, I will blow your head off
Yep.
if you go near me, this would stop. The problem is, in Chicago, for instance, they make it illegal to own guns. And so what happens then is the criminals know you can't do anything, and they can point a gun at you, and then the cops tell you. They tell you this. You know what you do? The officers say, just make sure you comply with everything they want. You know what I said? No. So when the guy tried mugging me, I laughed. And I just kept walking. And I just basically ignored him. I was like, dude, first of all, I'm broke. I don't have any money. And he threatened me with a knife, and I just laughed. I'm like, I'm not gonna do anything. The point is, if people had the right to defend themselves and someone walked up to you and said, give me your stuff, you'd be like, oh, I got something for you. It's called a 45.
Sometimes,
Instead.
but there is tactical retreat. In the art of war, you don't want to let someone goad you into
You don't
combat.
escalate. Yeah, that's very. Maj Toure, who's great. I don't know if you've had him on the show.
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Black Guns Matter. Shout out to Maj. He does workshops where he talks about de-escalation. And I think this is something that is very important. And I'm saying this as someone born in the Soviet Union. It's very important for people, especially young males, especially low-status young males, to be educated and be told, you know what? If you take a step back, you're not a coward. You're not a woman. You're not whatever pejorative you want to use. Sometimes it's okay to be like, you know what? Fine. This is not going to escalate because Jeanette Rankin, who was the only member of Congress to vote against World War I and World War II, she said, you don't win a war any more than you win a hurricane. So, but it's kind of like
good one.
a knife fight or a gunfight. It's going to end ugly. At the very least, even in a free society, you're going to have to sit down and adjudicate and say, I drew this gun on this person for this reason.
Yep.
I'm not a threat. Shouldn't have my gun rights revoked.
So I'm not talking about a fight over honor, which is a lot of what happens in
Yes.
Chicago, where two guys refuse to back down because of their honor. No. You know, don't die for pride. You know what I mean? I'm talking about a guy, you got a couple kids and you're with your wife and the state says you can't have guns anymore. And you know you live in Chirac. So you know what a lot of people in Chicago do? They go and illegally buy them anyway.
Of course.
And there's a lot of good, hardworking families with no criminal history who are in felony possession of firearms because they refuse to be victims to these gangs who terrorize their neighborhoods.
And who's enforcing these laws?
The state and the police.
Okay. So
Right.
what do you think should be done when someone takes an oath to uphold the Constitution and in violating that oath, they leave poor, helpless people defenseless in their homes? Do you think these people should be respected?
No.
Okay. My work here is done. Take care,
Yeah,
guys.
I agree.
All right.
I'm out of here.
But we agree. I think there needs to be heavy reform, and the problem is social enforcement.
Yes.
The fact that the police will face no repercussions for this. So it used to be the cop would show up and they'd get a free hot dog. Now we're hearing a lot that they don't. But the problem is it's not for the right reason. So bringing it back to Chauvin, my point is this. If the left said, I don't care about Chauvin, I care about the police department, I care about the laws, the war on drugs doesn't work, people who should not be criminals are being criminalized, unfortunately, there's big gaps in the logical consistency of many, many people. And I assure you, I recognize this. I have it as well, same as anybody.
We all do. Yes, of course.
But when you have people who say, there was something posted by Rachel Maddow. It said people who would take the rights from others deserve none themselves or whatever. And so I tweeted, Rachel Maddow agrees all gun control should be abolished.
Yeah.
Because what she doesn't understand is that she regularly advocates for taking people's rights away.
She understands.
Sure. So a lot of these people on the left, many of the progressives, they're actually pro-gun. They absolutely are. They're like the Socialist Rifle Association types. And then there's a decent overlap with many of these Antifa people. Some of these Antifa people recently arrested in Portland were armed with guns.
Well, the Marxists are very pro-gun because the argument. Well, do you know what? I'm writing about this in my upcoming book, The White Pill. There's a myth among the boomer conservatives that gun control started as a result of they didn't want black people to become armed post Civil War.
Well, we've said that.
It actually started in Illinois because a lot of these labor unions were forming militias. And they were drilling because they were ready to start a revolution. And this was a big problem. It's like, wait a minute, the Second Amendment specifically says you should have a militia. They're forming labor militias in the idea of eventually killing the capitalists and taking over. And this was a huge Supreme Court case, and they lost. And that's where gun control really kind of started.
What year was it?
I think 1870 or something.
And then within like a couple decades, what was it called? The Haymarket Massacre? Was that what it was called?
Don't spoil my book, but yes, the Haymarket Massacre.
That's in Chicago. Was that in Chicago?
That is in Chicago. Yes.
Yeah, that was. What happened with that? Someone threw dynamite or something?
Okay, this is the story of Louis Ling, who's on the cover of the Anarchist Handbook, which I'll be back on to talk about when it's ready, assuming I don't burn this bridge today. Who knows? It's a live show.
Let's start this off.
The bridge is made of glass.
So everybody understands the context. You're saying that gun control starts with these labor unions, and now we're talking about the Haymarket Massacre.
It's a very, very quick transition. So what happens is in Illinois, you have these. They're very heavily immigrant, very heavily German. Labor unions are forming militias, and they're mustering. I think that's the term when they're practicing, so on and so forth. There was a union meeting in Haymarket Square in Chicago, which is still around, and different people were talking. At night, a bomb got thrown, dynamite. A lot of people got killed, including several police officers. A bunch of anarchists were rounded up, some of whom were not even there. And they were accused of conspiracy to commit murder because they were advocating these radical ideas. One of them was someone named Louis Ling. If you look him up on the internet, he looks like Channing Tatum. It looks like a contemporary photo, even though it's from 1870 something. It's crazy.
What is it? Louis Ling?
Ling, L-I-N-G-G. He's the stud of anarchism. He was the first Che Guevara.
Wow,
basically.
You're not kidding.
I'm not, right?
I'm impressed.
Yeah, he's a hunk.
Jeez, what the
So
heck?
they put these anarchists on trial. Louis Ling, they had searched his house, and there was a lot of dynamite in his house. And his lawyer said weekly, well, he's got a right to have dynamite in his house. This has become a meme where Louis Ling is alleged to have said, I couldn't have thrown that bomb. I was at home making bombs. Because he wasn't there, but a bomb got thrown. They were sentenced to death. They were all hanged. Lewis was one of the 4 of them were hanged, or 5. Lewis escaped the hanging because he snuck in a blasting cap into his jail cell, blew off his jaw, and then wrote in blood on the wall, "Hooray for anarchy." The others, one of them, when he was being hanged, said, "Someday the voices you strangle will be louder than the someday the." I forget the term, whatever. They got pardoned many years later, and there's a memorial to them right now in Chicago. But this is where a lot of it started.
The gun control stuff.
Yes.
Wow.
Well,
so the conservatives, it's funny. The ACLU also got started defending communists because it was this radical revolutionary idea. So a lot of conservatives like to adopt these ideas, and they don't realize where the origins are from the radical left.
So this could have been a false flag. Like the law could have thrown dynamite in and blamed it on.
That's what they said. They said this was an agent provocateur paid for by the capitalists to get us in trouble. Well, and we still don't know who threw the bomb to this day.
So let's wrap this back to the origin of how we started talking about this, which was the Chauvin trial. They're going after one guy, Derek Chauvin. If they convict him, the state, which in my opinion is responsible, will cheer and hurrah, and all of the activists will be satisfied. Well, probably not, but if the idea is they want Chauvin put on trial as the individual, they're ignoring what's really going on. And I likened this to I'll put it exactly like this. It's like, imagine if there was, in feudal Japan, the ninja was tasked with taking out the emperor. Instead, he fought with the palace guard and then celebrated when the palace guard, one of them, was removed from his post. Chauvin is just one guy who works for a system. Getting that guy convicted won't change anything. And he was just some guy who was doing, he was told, here's how you restrain someone. Now, whether or not he actually did anything wrong in that capacity, stopping Floyd, I disagree with the war on drugs, but there's arguments about what you do when there's statutory law in the books. Derek Chauvin was trained by the Minneapolis police to do, it's called the recovery position. That's what it said in the training thing that they released, because if you put your knee on their back, they could asphyxiate. So he literally moves his knee. Should this guy be convicted after everything we've seen with all the evidence, Chauvin with the fentanyl in his system, with a guy who now it appears to be a dealer, who he appeared to be high. Floyd said before he was even restrained, did you see this? I can't breathe. He said it before he was even restrained. So all of that leads to this conclusion of at least, bare minimum, reasonable doubt. My problem, the war on drugs, first and foremost, is a big part of this, especially when I saw, Floyd's girlfriend testify about opioid addiction and what they were going through. And I was like, this is insane, man, that we're doing this. The problem I have is the activists who are angry are being easily distracted and pointing at one guy. And when he's convicted, nothing will change. They will not do anything.
There's two things. One, they want to make an example of him to make all the other cops fall in line. Two is I just want to point out what the slogan, the thing on the memorial is, because it's a great quote. He said, this is August Spies, who's one of the ones who was hanged. He says, "The day will come when our silence will be more powerful than the voice you are strangling today." So I think that's the case with a lot of people who are killed by the state. It's that they are silenced, but what they represent, which might not actually be accurate, speaks volumes.
Yeah, well, Michael, the state realized that, and so now they go for character assassination instead. Sure. They learned a while back, and I'm surprised it took them as long as it did, to be honest. When they were like, hey, if we got a problem, we just kill him. And then it's like, well, congratulations, you made a martyr who's immortal now.
Right.
So they have to smear your reputation and make you a nasty diddler or something, and then all of a sudden your legacy is destroyed and nobody wants to reference your name anymore.
And they're trying to do that with the Trump administration. There were several articles written how they're trying to have people trying to make anyone who worked for him radioactive and unhireable. Remember, it was tough for the former president your job as a defense attorney is to defend child abusers, murderers, rapists, like the most horrible people. That's your job. They were having trouble finding people to defend the sitting or at the time former president for the impeachment trial.
And now you see what Facebook said, right?
No,
Facebook
I did
and Instagram.
not.
The voice of the president is not allowed on their platform.
I saw that, yeah.
The voice of the
Lara
president.
Trump, yeah.
What was that?
Lara Trump, the president's daughter-in-law, she interviewed him. She didn't say anything particularly inflammatory. Didn't talk about the election. They pulled the video, and they said, you cannot have Trump's voice on our site.
So they have AI just clocking Trump's voice, ready to pull it.
No, they knew.
No,
apparently, when she expressed her intention,
they
to
called
interview.
her.
Yeah, they sent her an email saying, like, just so you know, if you do this, you're gone. And then she was like, I'm going to do it anyway. And I was like, right on.
They're trying to vanish a president from existence who's still alive.
This is, let me ask you, do you think that the moves being made by the establishment today are something new? Or do you think those individuals in this power structure has always existed but slipped up?
I think they're losing their power. I think these are the same moves. They're trying to making people radioactive has happened for a very long time in this country. And I think they have to ramp it up because if there's 3 networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, the 3 of us can get in a room and be like, look, this guy's a clown. We're not going to repeat him. Yes, 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 shake hands. That's why a lot of ideas that were kind of on the fringe would be heard by the mainstream because it's like the 3 of them said, yeah, we're not going to talk about it. Now, when you have this show and infinite shows on YouTube, on Rumble and all these other locations, it's impossible to have a monopoly of the megaphone. So now they're freaking out because it's very difficult to sustain a regime based on mistruths or untruths when all it takes is one jerk with a Twitter account to be like, this is inaccurate. And then your whole facade falls. It's like finding out your wife has been cheating on you. Maybe she cheated on you once, but that changes the whole 10 years.
The crazy thing about it is, what we're seeing with the censorship, what we're seeing with Steven Crowder, it's clearly insane. And it's like every single time the new story happens, it's worse than it's been.
What do you mean by insane? Because when I heard about this when I was doing my North Korea book, a lot of times people say insane when they just don't understand the system, and a lot of times the system is coherent.
I mean insane as in the figurative that it's so shockingly
Okay.
outrageous it would make anyone think the world is gone nuts. Or I just mean insane as in like is a hyperbolic. This is
Okay.
what is going on. This is dialed up to 11.
Yeah.
Crowder broke no rule. He did not break a single rule. I know because I've spoken with Google on the phone, with Google representatives on the phone about their rules. It's really interesting. I wonder if Crowder will sue them for defamation, because what they're telling people is that in these articles where people ask about Crowder, they say that he violated their deceptive policy or spam policy. But the specific email that got sent out by Google said, you can't do this particular thing. Crowder did not do that particular thing. They said, you can't say these two things at the same time. Crowder did not say those two things. But then they tell the press he violated that rule. Well, that's a false statement of fact. He didn't. They claimed they removed a video for trying to circumvent his restriction. He didn't. The rules clearly state, or at least Google has said, you can upload to another channel if the content is substantially different, which it was. He filmed a cell phone video saying, hey guys, here's what's happening. It wasn't his normal show. Too bad, they said. So this is crazy, right? Now, here's the thing. Even if they get rid of Crowder, and it really does feel like as time goes on, they are strangling these networks.
But can I interrupt? Because there's all these names that they've successfully picked off one by one that we forget about. Remember Nick Monroe?
No.
Yes, absolutely.
I remember him.
He was a badass on Twitter.
Who is he?
He was a Twitter journalist. Shout out to Nick if he's watching. And he would be breaking a lot of stories because there would be something in the corporate press, and he was this nerdy kid with a computer and a lot of spare time, and he'd do his due diligence and he'd find articles like what you're saying is not accurate. Here's the receipts. They got rid of him. Carpe Diem, who was President Trump's meme maker. This guy is basically making memes for the president, things that are going viral. They yanked him. Shout out to my friend Carpe Diem. So there's others that we can name that
Milo was a
Milo.
shocking one to me.
Yeah.
That was like
that wasn't shocking to me at all.
Not shocking. He put in his Twitter profile that he worked for BuzzFeed.
It
or
was
something
that they
like
banned him across all the platforms.
That
at
was
once
the
that shocked me.
collusion. Yes.
Right. The fact that when it comes to these higher profile personalities, none of them should be banned, by the way. I just don't think so. They colluded. Or at the very least, they were like waiting for the moment when they could all act in concert, and then for some reason did. Although it's not completely unified, because like Twitter waits a day or two before they finally do it.
Well, they waited a while for Alex Jones.
Right.
Yeah, that was another one.
But that
Collusion. It looked
But
like.
it's very. But the thing is, like, I'll play devil's advocate to some extent. I don't think people appreciate how weak a lot of corporate America is, and no one wants to stick out their neck. So it's a lot easier for me as Jack Dorsey, if YouTube and Zuckerberg are all doing this, for me to be like, there's no cost for me to join them. But if I'm sticking my neck out, like we saw with Black Lives Matter and the guy who ran CrossFit, and he's like, this has nothing to do with us. We're a gay exercise organization. They're like, well, now you're the odd one out.
Yeah.
So it very much groupthink does play into this as not necessarily nefarious mindset.
So here's what I wonder. Obviously, there is a mainstream, and YouTube will pick off one by one all these big channels, and they're really homogenizing everything. I don't know how long will last. A lot of people are like, Tim will never get banned. He's too milquetoast, even though Facebook already removed me.
Nick Monroe is, I mean, I'm not going to call you milquetoast. Nick Monroe was not some kind of radical.
Yeah, they said he was circumvention.
Yeah.
But so even after they do that, the technology, cryptocurrency, your own private websites, open source tech still exists. Crowder has a website. He has Mug Club. He's got, he's with Blaze TV. They can reduce a decent amount of his reach on their platforms. But in the end, look at what happens when Trump gets banned off Twitter. People start losing followers like crazy.
Right.
A lot of people were only on Twitter for the president in the first place. When Patreon banned Carl Benjamin, who now runs the Lotus Eaters podcast, which you guys should check out, I lost a ton of support from people who are messaging me saying, dude, love your work, but I'm here for a lot of people and I have to move now because, my favorite show is, Carl's show. So I'm getting off of Patreon. And then I had no choice. If I stayed on, I would have lost 20 or 25% of my...
So you went through that personally. I didn't know you were on Patreon.
I went through it too. I was on Patreon. Then
Sam Harris left.
Dave Rubin launched Locals. Now I'm on malice.locals.com. It's a Patreon Facebook hybrid. It's free to join. $5 if you want to contribute. The point, look, I know you're not a fan, whatever. The point is, I got off Patreon the second I could if there was an alternative, because it's not a sustainable career as a creative type to know that overnight I could have all my work vanished without any recourse, without any explanation. Whereas now I can call Ruben up and be like, yo, what's going on? And have an actual response. I think that's a very big difference.
And a lot of people had the ability to call Jack Conte of Patreon and do the same thing.
Okay. I
So
did not
my-
have that ability.
Right. So right now, the issue I take, and look, I think Dave's great. I think he's a friend, and local sounds awesome. My issue is and always will be centralizing. Basically, joining any of these platforms means they could remove me whenever they want. And what do you think's going to happen? I
Wait,
mean,
what do you mean who they? Who's you mean locals or me personally?
right now, it's Dave Rubin. He could
Right.
snap his fingers and destroy your career.
I don't know about that.
Or like,
I mean, your income, your stream, everything you've posted on
Yeah,
locals.
but I mean,
I'd be a little hyperbolic when I say career.
sure,
You've
sure.
got other platforms.
and he could be
I
like,
thought you meant being hyperbolic about the idea that you have a career.
Okay.
Fair,
Well, a little
fair. I am here. Fair.
All right.
But I mean, that's a function of anything. If you're going to be a waiter, if you're going to be a chef, I mean, you're going to have some owner. Someone's going to, unless you're totally
Sure.
self-employed.
So reduce that amount.
Sure.
So that's
you're singing my song.
That's why we started Timcast.com. I was like, why should I be on someone else's platform? I should make my own. And what my plan is now, we've talked about it quite a bit. Ian's recommended some developers he might have. We're going to make an open source plugin that anyone could just drop on their own website, which creates the full package subscription model, and I have no control over it.
That's a great idea.
Absolutely.
This
I am going to,
here
with
we
this project, attempt, I will say, to destroy all of these subscription services, every single one of
let's
them.
just
and more
improve
power
them
to
from a
you.
distance.
I think this is something that I get into a lot on Twitter. People are so, because they sarcastically say, oh, just build your own Patreon. No, just build your own website. It's like there's a lot of smart people who are seeing these problems coming down the road. It's hard to miss. These problems are Godzilla sized. And all it's going to take is one smart person, here you go, and be like, this is going to be a workaround. And once this problem is solved, it is solved permanently. I'm old enough, I'm 63, to remember when the idea... I'm old enough to remember when people said the idea of, oh, make your own website would have been an absurdity. Now it takes 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Yeah, you get a WordPress plugin.
Yeah.
And they're amazing.
So
Yes.
we want to start. I mean, look, you don't need a lot for your own subscription service. Like Timcast.com is not this. It's not the biggest thing in the world. It's a relatively simple WordPress. From the new members we got, we were able to make a better website launching soon, which is now pro. And from those members, we're now going to start funding TV shows, movies, and I read through a treatment for a show we might produce. This is amazing stuff. It's going to be awesome. I want to create an open source project that someone could just install on a web server. Like they find a hosting company, they install it, boom. When you go to their website, it looks like any of these subscription services. It's got a login, sign up function. It's got a database. Now, there's some things you have to be responsible for, security, things like that. Your own payment processor,
Sure.
things like that. It'll probably be Stripe or PayPal like most people use. But it'll be like one click, boom, package upload, your website exists. Then you'll have all the WordPress functioning for uploading photos, and you'll have a little bit of a learning curve, but for the most part, you will have a totally decentralized Patreon system. Let me tell you. I talked to Jack Conte of Patreon a couple times when people got banned. And for a lot of people who may not understand what's going on, Patreon is a subscription service. They abruptly banned Lauren Southern, eliminating her income. They later abruptly banned Carl Benjamin, eliminating his income. And
Wait, let's add, just so people understand, abruptly means it's not like YouTube where you get a strike. It's like you wake up and all your names are gone, all your money's gone, any money that they had in escrow they pulled for you, you're not seeing a penny of this. This is very sudden and it's out of nowhere and you're not given warnings. This is
Right.
people need to appreciate how extreme this is.
So Lauren Southern got pulled overnight without warning, wakes up one day to find out her income stream is just gone. Then they said, don't worry, we'll never do it again. And then they did it again to Carl Benjamin. What I was told, long story short, in a phone call with Jack Conte, I talked to him for a long time on a couple different occasions. I'll give you the gist of it without telling you necessarily specifics, because I'll respect his privacy in that regard, but it's simple. The sentiment was this. When one of our partners comes to us and says, we're going to shut down your entire website unless you get rid of one person, I have a choice to make.
Yeah.
10,000 people's careers and their livelihoods, or one. Well, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. My response was, tell them to shove off. And then when those 10,000 people and all their 10,000 followers or 1 million followers each are wondering what happened, I'll point them in your direction. Instead, they just give up. So I'll tell you this. Much as I respect Dave Rubin, what do you think would happen if MasterCard called him up like they did to Patreon, and they say, if you don't get rid of Malice, we shut your company down overnight?
Well, let's just pretend he's saying Bridget Fetisi because she's much more expendable than me. Love you.
Love you.
Wow.
We don't have to argue about this because this actually happened. So
Did it?
Cody Wilson, who is awesome, who's the guy behind Ghost Guns,
Yes.
Defense Distributed.
Yes.
I'm wearing the shirt right now.
All right.
He had something called Patreon. And he was
Right.
trying to make a Patreon alternative where people who are banned from Patreon can go there. And then
Patreon.
people who are heretics.
Yeah.
And his issue, why he had to shut it down, is because precisely like you said, Visa or Stripe, one of the payment processors says, no, we're not doing business with you. If you can't get money from person A to person B, it's really not over the internet. There's not a mechanism of exchange. Everyone's flipping out like, Malice, you're ignoring this. How's the market to solve from this? I'm telling people right now, whether it's through crypto or some other mechanism, there are a lot of smart people who see this for the problem that it is and are taking steps to work around this. And this is something that absolutely has to happen, but I'm sure you know even better than I do, people who are doing this and trying to have the workaround so that Visa doesn't have that kind of you by the throat.
And the big problem, it's very simple. Every single person that I talk to about this, not every single person. There's a few, we have PocketNet, they sponsor us. They want to go full decentralized blockchain, so we're glad to have them sponsor the show. When we do their shoutouts periodically, but it seems like they're truly decentralized. Like it's all on you. It's you're the node operator. It's yours, and that sounds like a good place to start. But a lot of these companies need to make money.
Yeah.
How do they fund the development? And so I have people saying to me, like, when I was pitching this idea of creating an open source decentralized plugin that you run it yourself. Don't look at me. I got nothing to do with it. I can't ban you. It's not my website. And they're like, yeah, well, how do you fund that? Like, are you going to charge them a percentage fee? And I was like, no, we give it away for free because we're socialists here at Timcast IRL to a certain degree. Yes, I absolutely am going to take the money that some of the excess money we get and create a system that will protect free speech and subscription services for many other people. Now, it may be that, Ian downloads this package and he creates his own website and then his payment processor bans him. But that won't affect anybody else, and there's nothing we can do about it. That's between him and his business. We don't need that centralized node, individual who has that power. We take that power away. I think the ultimate value here for my company and everyone else's is it protects us in the long run. If everyone is on a decentralized system. Now, here's the best part.
Wait, just one more thing. It's also good for your company because good karma gives you dividends. I'm a firm believer if you help people and empower them, it comes back to you in the future.
But here's the other way it's going to really help us.
I guess you don't care.
I do.
I do. I want to make a program that lets people spin up their own crypto.
Yeah.
Check it out. With this plugin, it will create a network between everyone who uses it. So we're very preliminary. Ian so far mentioned a few devs.
RSS 3. We basically want to evolve RSS so you can now. Have you ever used Gab's Dissenter browser?
I've not.
It's like a browser you download, like Chrome or whatever. But you go to a website and then you can comment on the website on the browser. So something like that with like a Matrix login passport where you have your name and all your data of like who you're subscribed to. You can put your payments through that, and you can use RSS 3.
I'm just very excited to be here learning about how Skynet was built.
Yes.
Yeah. And if we free the
'Cause we're here.
software code, we'll be able to watch the AI go haywire and see why it did it.
In real time.
I'll tell you my vision would be if I upload this package to my server and press install or whatever and you get this template, it's going to have, videos, blogs, login. You log in, then like I on the back end have to put in my bank and all this stuff and set that up. But there will also be a networking link that when you go to it, it shows you trending websites. So if Ian has iancrossland.net running the same thing and he got 1 million views this week, in that networking, it's going to be like, here's one of the biggest shows. And we can't control that. It's just an open source network protocol that tracks big channels. It could eventually create a more power you have, the more power you gain kind of thing.
Maybe.
But ultimately, no one will be
Wait,
in
who
charge.
has iancrossland.com?
This guy, Ian Crossland. He's like a Boy Scout or something.
Is that right? Like literally a kid?
Well, he's a guy,
Okay.
an older man. Cool dude, I think. I've only seen him from a distance.
You know the head of the CIA, former head of the CIA, John O'Brennan.
Yeah.
Someone should look at johnobrennan.com.
That
think
website
boy.
is going down right now.
No,
There are
I
about
think
10,000
you
people hitting
mentioned this
that
to me
website.
before.
Yeah,
Is it good?
Yeah.
it's good. Also, CadburyCreamEggs.com.
Oh gosh.
What?
I own it.
Scared.
Oh, you do?
Yeah, I
Really?
love
Nice.
them.
Easter on Sunday.
It's Easter every day in my stuff.
Happy
That's
Easter,
right.
Michael.
Love it.
I was going to say about
right.
That's because I
Let's-
keep rising
let's-
from the grave.
Well, let's get very serious with the censorship stuff and why I think it's so important. So, look, I'm talking a lot. I don't like talking a lot when it comes to projects we have not done. Okay.
right.
Sure.
So-
yeah.
I'll tell you that as far as we've come with this is we've speculated on some ideas, and Ian's been like, I've got a handful of developers who could maybe get started on the project.
People keep messaging me too, and continue to do that, please. Twitter's a good place.
I'm
to
thinking
message me.
maybe we need to start a 501c3.
I think it's about time in Delaware.
And that's, well, I don't know where, but it's a 501c3 whose mission is to create this open source subscription networking service so that people control their own Patreon. I'll tell you why. Right now, as we are seeing YouTube ban Donald Trump's voice,
Yeah.
the result of this is unprecedented.
Wait, no, is it YouTube also or just Instagram and
I'm
Facebook?
sorry, I got it wrong.
I really want to make sure we get that right. Yeah.
As we are seeing Facebook and Instagram ban the voice of the president, but YouTube did take down Right Side Broadcasting Network's video of Trump giving a speech. All of these moves in big tech censorship is leading to it's building up power for the establishment. They're trying to regain control. You know, earlier, of course, you mentioned it used to be 3 networks. It was really easy for them to control everything. Now it's harder. What ends up happening is
I think it's impossible, but go ahead.
Right. What ends up happening is once they start centralizing control by having their allies in tech ban people, well, they win elections. Donald Trump loses. And then the result of this is terrifying. The New York Post reports U.S. expresses unwavering support for Ukraine amid Russian military movements. The New York Times reports fighting escalates in eastern Ukraine, signaling the end to another ceasefire. Ukraine and Russia issued statements Tuesday noting the worsening of a conflict that has been on a low simmer for years with countless ceasefires. It's picking up. And what's fascinating about this is that before Donald Trump, this was a major move by the existing U.S. establishment, intelligence agencies, the military-industrial complex, gaining control, getting Western influence into Ukraine.
Yeah.
And then creating this major conflict. Don't get me wrong. Putin has a lot to account for in terms of his responsibility here, the seizing of Crimea and the assistance he's providing to the separatists in the East. But this is the big war. This is one of the big conflicts, having a lot to do with the Gazprom natural gas monopoly. Europe is faced with very high energy prices. They wanted to get a pipeline it's called the Qatar-Turkey pipeline. Long story short, all of these pieces come together in really interesting ways. In 2009, this is reported by The Guardian, the U.S. wanted to destabilize Syria because Syria was refusing U.S. interests, refusing to allow them to build a pipeline that would bring natural gas into Europe. Well, Syria said outright, Russia is our ally, and we will not harm their business interests with their gas monopoly. Convenient for us, there was a civil war, a revolution, and conflict and attempts to destabilize Syria occurred, and U.S. interests are there even right now. Reports that the U.S. is moving more in. So it's unsurprising to me that we're a couple months out of Joe Biden becoming president, and all of a sudden, Ukraine lights back up.
Of course it's not. I mean, of course it's not surprising. I mean, I think anyone who's even remotely red-pilled understands perfectly well that there's these international networks where they work together, and Joe Biden was their guy. And here's what really bothers me about Joe Biden. This is, I think, the worst thing you can say about him, and this is something that's not even really particularly controversial. If you, in my opinion, correctly regarded the Iraq war as a mistake, right? Let's suppose I was a chef. I've used this metaphor before, and I accidentally undercook some chicken and someone dies, right? Like, God forbid. As not only would I feel enormous guilt, I'm like, okay, I need to take mechanisms. If I'm going to still remain a chef, which I don't know that I would do because I killed someone, God forbid, I'm going to take steps to make sure this kind of thing never happens again, because this is so beyond the pale and inappropriate. I don't know how many people died in the Iraq war, Iraqis and Americans alike. If Joe Biden says this was a mistake and you feel guilt over it, tens of thousands, not hundreds of thousands of innocent lives being hundreds of thousands of innocent lives, or maybe not even innocent lives, but I don't think everyone should be killed. I would be like, all right, I'm going to make sure this doesn't happen again. I'm going to staff my White House with people who don't think this way. I'm going to make steps to kind of put fail safes in place. The urine in his Depends wasn't dry before he was sending arms to Syria.
Yeah,
this is very disturbing, and I gotta tell you, you see these photos of these hippies in the 60s with the soldiers, and this girl hippie puts the daisy in the barrel of his rifle.
Hippie.
Well, there's that very famous photo.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I thought, what an idiot. And now I think, you know what? She's not the idiot. Because she's really, even though she's maybe naive and not particularly sophisticated in her thoughts, she's like, you know what? This is wrong. And we are all raised to think that war is a last resort, but it's treated as a first priority by the state. And this is one of the biggest reasons I'm an anarchist. War is so glorified. And even when it happens, like, everyone's just like, eh. And I'm like, do you understand what this means? Bombs from the sky and children and innocent
The
kids.
truth is, they don't understand because
Yeah.
they haven't experienced.
Yeah, you're right. I don't even understand it because right.
You know what it is to me? The United States is the capital city in the Hunger Games, where they're all totally oblivious to the suffering of the outside districts who are being beaten and forced to fight to the death. And they're like, so what? And they're drinking Ipecac to vomit and keep eating until the war comes to them. You see, I believe it was the CIA that referred to, I'll keep the language light, okay? The CIA said actions in the Middle East resulted in blowback.
Yeah.
That when we were going over there, meddling in governments, arming rebel groups, people got mad at us over there, and they brought it back over here. And all of a sudden, the people in the capital are shocked. What's happening? Why is it happening? Don't worry. They just hate you for your freedoms.
Yeah.
Some simple answer. So you get these people blindly and ignorantly just cheering and dancing for the war machine. And then when it comes back to them, they pat you on the head and say, oh, it's because of your freedoms. Don't worry. Not realizing that, dude, maybe if we just minded our own business a little bit and worked on ourselves, people wouldn't be doing these things. Now, there are some serious challenges, though. China's expansion into many of these areas, their authoritarianism, they're trying to take over, and it seems like they're doing a heck of a good job of it, which is scary to me. Because if they end up as the global power, I don't like the idea of them gaining influence over us, but it seems like it's happening either way.
But the thing is, they're not gaining influence over us through militarily.
Right.
They're gaining influence over like, the same way the Soviet Union did, through surreptitious means, through intelligence, and through journalism and getting the right people who are kind of fans of theirs to some extent, or at least neutral, in the right positions of power. That's the insidious part. It's not China is not going to fight the U.S. maybe through a proxy war like the Korean War, but it's not going to be like a World War III, God forbid. But they are going to do mechanisms to make sure that their opinions are presented as unarguable with in the States.
Shout out to the fourth turning, which you're familiar with, I believe, yes?
I'm not.
Strauss-Howe generational theory.
No.
So this is book about 25 years ago.
Yes, look, Lydia's shocked.
I'm shook.
Yeah,
I'm really
I
surprised
figured-
that Michael hadn't heard of that.
Fascinating.
Every 20 years is a new season, and every 80 years we go through a major upheaval.
Oh God, I hate stuff like this. It is. Oh my God.
Get ready.
You don't like it,
This
huh?
is like astrology.
Sure.
Interesting.
What 80 years ago, we had World War II. 80 years
Sure.
before that, we had a civil war. 80 years before that, we had a revolutionary war.
Okay, and look, every president who was inaugurated, it was 1789, 1865, 1933, and would have been 2005. Whereas that 72 years in between, it was Washington, Lincoln, FDR. So it would have been George Bush's second term. So yes, sometimes these patterns appear, but to claim that they're kind of inevitable, I really reject
I'm
that.
not saying they're inevitable.
No, but if the implication is that these cycles tend to repeat, I think this is the kind of thing where you get the conclusion and you force the data to fit it.
Well, perhaps.
Possibly.
They wrote this book 20 years ago, and they did predict a certain amount of things, and a certain amount of things they got wrong, because that's typically the case when someone's speculating. But the general idea is, it's actually really simple to explain. Strong men make good times. Strong men make good times make weak men make hard times make strong men. Have you heard that before?
I have.
The general idea is that we've seen it with generational wealth. It typically lasts 3 generations. The individual who came from nothing and worked really hard and understood what gumption was, starts a business, makes a lot of money.
Sure.
Then they have a kid. The kid grows up.
Yeah, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. Yeah.
Right. And so that's kind of the general idea, that we're now entering this period where you have a bunch of very entitled people who simultaneously complain about the police, but then demand that the state be given more power over many other aspects of their lives. There's a lack of logic in a lot of what their decision making is. I digress. The point is, according to this book, we are entering the winter period, which should end with some kind of calamity. But here's the issue. The problem is that people tend to, and it's not always incorrect, they base the future off of the past. We should look to the past to try and understand what will happen in the future, but there's many things you can't predict because of a change in methodology and technologies.
Yes.
To clarify, as many people think Strauss-Howe generational theory is predicting a massive world war with China, Strauss-Howe generational theory says that each war is fought with the most powerful weapons of the time. The question we rose on the show is, and that might be social media.
No, it's love.
I think it's lasers from space.
Yes, Care Bear Stare is the most powerful weapon. No, what I mean is,
Monopoly.
a lot of people assume it's nuclear weapons because World War II.
Sure.
It's been 80 years.
Yeah.
The mind control, social media manipulation, and propaganda is infinitely more powerful right now. You can take over a country without firing a single bullet. You can convince the people to cheer for you as you storm their beaches.
I disagree, because when, what's his name, he wrote the book Propaganda, And there's this is in the
Bernays?
There's Bernays' book, and then there's Walter Lippmann's book, Public Opinion. Those are the two. Those were written in the 20s and 30s. It's a lot easier to propagandize. Look at Hitler. Look at Stalin. It is a lot easier to propagandize a population without access to independent media. It's a lot hard. Look at FDR. Look at Lincoln. Look at the Confederacy. It's a lot easier to have control of that population than it is now, as counterintuitive as it sounds.
It's a lot easier to disrupt a nation's power centers with independent media than
Yes,
it is.
correct.
So what the most powerful weapon is of today is not firing a nuke. It's China getting a bunch of sock puppets and bots across social media to undermine cohesion in the United States.
I'm all for undermining cohesion in the United States, as you know. I'm for breaking this country up, so that sounds like a good thing to me. I'm just going to take a step back about this book. There's a book I recommend everyone read by Arthur Herman, who's an amazing historian. His first book was called The Idea of Decline in Western History. And what he goes through is every 20 years, there's a new sect that says we're at the end of history. It's very millenarianism in the Christian sense. Like it's all going to come down. Get your bootstraps ready. And whether it's the Hitler version or whether it's the Greta Thunberg version, it's always right now. It's the end times, and somehow it never is the Armageddon. So I'm very skeptical of these books, where the conclusion always is now is when things are going to hit the fan. It's always now when things are about to hit the fan.
Yeah, I felt for that in 2006.
Mr. Malice.
Yeah.
Did you see what Marjorie Taylor Greene recently said about vaccine passports?
The mark of the beast.
The mark of the beast.
I predicted that.
You predicted what?
That Christian fundamentalists are going to start invoking the mark of the beast, not incorrectly, about these vaccine passports.
Not incorrectly.
Yes.
This is the craziest thing, because I didn't know this until someone super chatted us, that the mark of the beast was literally saying you couldn't buy or sell without it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. When I grew up.
You didn't read Revelation?
No.
Ooh,
And
the
I went
Whore
to
of
Catholic
Babylon?
school. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Kindergarten until end of 5th grade. I was in Catholic school.
7 heads and 10 horns?
Yeah. And it rose from the lake or whatever or something.
Yeah.
I read it recently. And I think it was several months ago, someone mentioned on the show that the prophecies are starting to come true.
They're always starting
I know.
Yeah.
And so I actually did it. I did a segment on it for my main channel.
People have been more immoral now than they've ever been.
Yeah. People are saying that, like, the prophecy of the lady with this star.
The Whore of Babylon, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, it's Venus and the moon and whatever. And
Okay.
it's like, you're looking for patterns. Like you were just saying a moment ago. You look for patterns. Humans are really good at this. What's that thing that's called where you like look at it? You can see
faces. Yeah, I forgot what that's called.
Pareidolia or something
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
so.
You can see a face in everything. And so people post these photos on the internet. So I do think it's really interesting, though, that the vaccine passport, you'll need it to buy and trade. And now you've got, obviously, certain individuals saying, could this be the mark of the beast? Could it be?
No. It's not. It's a bad idea regardless of the mark of the beast. And the problem is I'm a fan of hers because I like anyone who's a loon who says things that are just, it's much more effective to get your position across in politics if you come across as unreasonable than if you're trying to sit down and have a discussion.
Really? Why do you say? Why?
Because there's no talking to her, right? So
Yeah.
she's not going to sit down with AOC, and they're not going to co-sponsor legislation, right?
That's never going to happen.
That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
But
Well,
that's,
AOC wouldn't do it either.
but that's of use to the Republican Party when they're coming off as intransigent, because then the Democrats, this happened twice. It happened during the Gingrich Congress in 94, 95. This happened during the debt ceiling crisis under Obama when the Republicans like, we're not raising the debt crisis and we might have to default. Those are the only two times they got budgetary concessions from the Democrats. So it's a very useful thing to come off as or actually be
Insane.
alone. Yeah.
That's what a lot of people were saying about Donald Trump.
Right.
When it came to foreign policy, people were like, you can't negotiate with this guy because he's out of it. And so that put pressure on these other world leaders where it's like, what do you do when you have to negotiate for the best of your country and you're with Donald Trump who's going to go, excuse me, no, I don't know what that is. We're not, no. And you're like, what do I say? He just takes. It's one of the reasons people really like the guy. But I suppose it's a good point. Now, to be fair, I think AOC isn't going to be, coming to the table for the Democrats either. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, like you said, comes off like a loon. AOC is not going is effectively doing the same thing for Democrats. So in essence,
She's not.
You don't think so?
I don't think it's the same thing. I don't think AOC is saying, well, no, you're right. You know what? Because she is saying the Republicans are changing the weather and through climate change. So I just take it back. Yeah. Okay. I'm right. I was wrong.
Look, she said under Donald Trump, these are concentration camps.
Yeah.
So we can see, it's funny how they demonize Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I'm like, yo, you guys had AOC first, so you don't get to come out and complain about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, I can certainly point out Marjorie Taylor Greene's posts on Facebook, and she apologized for these things. She did. She walked it all back.
Let's talk about that. Okay, if you say that the Rothschilds are building lasers to change the weather, I get how you're sorry you said it.
Yeah.
But I don't get is walk me through how you got there and why you no longer are going there. That's what I want to know. I don't need the apology.
So are you saying that it's quite possible that she's just saying that and she really still believes in the space lasers changing the weather?
If you believe that space lasers changed the weather, as is your prerogative, what changed your mind? Al Roker?
No, hold on a second. There was several studies done where they used infrared lasers to cloud seeding for cloud seeding.
Okay,
that actually happened.
Sure.
I guess the issue is when you claim the Rothschilds were doing it, instead of like it was like a University of Berlin or something was like, hey, we just realized this thing happens when you point lasers at the sky.
Tinfoil pool.
Yeah. No, I just think it's like what you need to understand about the insidiousness of these conspiracy theories is how they come from a little seed of truth.
Oh, of course.
And
yes.
then someone pours Gatorade on them because that's what plants crave. And then they end up with some wacky idea. They can't figure out why things aren't working properly.
And also in their defense, we've all played telephone, right? Mm-hmm. So I can't tell you the number of times when someone reads an article and then they'll just repeat it. And it's like, that's not what the article said at all. I've had people accuse me, because I wrote a book called The New Right, of portraying myself as having invented it. I'm like, what are you perceiving me having said that you're getting to this conclusion?
Yeah.
Other than the Rothschilds put lasers in your brain.
But look, I think AOC holds... I think it's fair to point out, thinking about space lasers from the Rothschilds for weather control is like very much out there for sure.
It's out in space.
Here's the problem.
It's silver nitrate.
The Democrats believe often many equally as insane things.
Sure.
Chris Hayes has on a guy on his show on MSNBC. Is it possible that Donald Trump has been a Russian asset since the late 80s? And they don't even stop to think that would imply that Trump was still working for the Soviet Union, which doesn't exist. So who is the asset for? You know about that, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that's as crazy as space lasers, to be honest.
It's not. What I'm saying is, well, I mean, that's fairly crazy. We'll have a crazy off and calculate and quantify what's...
No, it's come on. Wait, what's more crazy? That one person has been corrupted, or that they're changing the weather for secret purposes? I don't think those are comparable in terms of lunacy. And also, Putin was a KGB agent, so there was a lot of continuity between the Soviet Union and now.
Absolutely,
no one's denying that.
We have satellites. We have satellites with lasers. We can use infrared lasers for cloud seeding. We use silver. Was it silver iodide for cloud seeding?
Maybe, yeah. I thought it was silver nitrate. It might be
silver
iodide.
nitrate. I could be wrong. Silver nitrate.
There's a silver they use.
The point is,
you're saying if you had to play roulette, and the choices are Donald Trump has been a Russian agent, and the Rothschilds are firing lasers to change the climate, you're saying it's a coin toss?
No.
Okay.
I'm saying that they're both really crazy, and I understand why you think one is crazier than the other, because it certainly is.
Okay, that's all.
But I'm also pointing out what they do is they take morsels of truth to create this
of course,
amalgam.
It's a lot easier to manipulate with some basis in truth than just something pure fabrication.
1619 Project is fabricated garbage, and the left believes this. AOC believes this stuff.
It's a creation myth.
Right. She puts this stuff in policy. So again, I get it.
I'm sorry to interrupt you because I'm going to be pedantic. We don't know that she believes it. It could just certainly be of use to her.
I agree. No, I think you're right.
Insidious.
I just mean that she uses it.
Yeah.
So this is the point I was going to bring up before. Under Trump, she's like, these are concentration camps. Under Biden, she literally said there's no border crisis, and it's different now because Biden is trying to solve the problem. It's worse than it was under Trump. It's not the most amount of migrants, but Reuters even said we are looking at a 20-year spike in these unaccompanied minors and illegal immigrants. We got new video from Project Veritas. Children in the dirt under a bridge near McAllen. It is bad.
What they don't want to talk about, because no one knows how to wrap their heads around this. I saw there's some articles that mention this, but it's not being made into a bigger deal, and I think it really should be. People talk about rape culture. There's a lot of sexual assaults in these. When you have lots of people who have not citizens, who have no access to the legal system, who you don't know who the heck they are, they're locked in close confinement with other people. Like in a prison, you're going to have large numbers of assaults. And that to me is what I find extremely disturbing. And if you actually were concerned about these people who are being held in these locations, that should be your priority number one. And it's not. And that to me is very, very sick.
Let me ask you something. Do you believe Marjorie Taylor Greene genuinely believed those things she was saying?
Yes.
Do you think AOC genuinely believes the things she's saying?
No.
Which would you prefer in government?
I would prefer. I can't say what I prefer regarding government because we get banned.
Okay, that's fair.
All right, just like we won't go to the moon with it, but if you're like looking at two people and you're like, you can have the person who's lying or the person who's crazy, what do?
I would rather have the person who's lying because the person who's lying is still aware of reality and acting in accordance with it. Whereas the person who's crazy, it is a bell curve. And if you go 4 standard deviations, you might have things like nuclear war or really crazy.
So
Yeah, I agree with
I agree because
Yeah.
the point I wanted to get to is with a liar like AOC, if she was given unlimited resources, she would implement some really wacky, crazy system where she tries to pander to her base.
Sure.
But at least it would be like healthcare that people just kind of are upset with. Or, generally bad things that still exist in reality. If you took someone who was absolutely crazy, and I'm not trying to imply Marjorie Taylor Greene would do this, but if you had somebody who believed that there was Nazis on the far side of the moon, with unlimited resources, they would get us building rockets to the moon to go fight people who aren't there. And that would just...
I might rather have rockets to the moon than like socialized healthcare because less people are dying.
We'll see.
So now you made
then
the
hold
argument
on.
for the other case.
Exactly.
Huh.
The point I'm making is that you could have a crazy person just build crazy things. I don't know. Maybe they nuke the moon. AOC would
Gotta
just
nuke someone.
Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do? Got something sitting around? You can't. They're
Heat it
gonna
up.
expire at some point. So maybe it's not so easy because the liar is going to make a broken system, and they do. The politicians are just like, how can we make everyone happy? I don't know. Give them universal health care that they got to pay for, so they get the individual mandate.
No, here's the easy one: that the Republicans for fiscal responsibility, they never vote for a smaller budget. That's a very blatant, explicit lie.
Right. You get liars, and you get crazy people, and sometimes you get both. And I think we have both. I don't know. I guess your solution is what? Just like anarchy?
Yeah, it's not empowering crazy people and liars.
Have you?
With the power of police.
I was thinking we could get rid of representatives and just use smart contracts that we vote for as a collective. So
Why do we have to vote on anything?
so that we can agree without having to
'Cause
talk to
sometimes-
each other?
But
Because sometimes rivers start on fire.
sure, but rivers start on fire because the property right of that river isn't being protected.
Who the people owned the river.
But that's not a thing. People can't. Who are the people? It's like that's
People
the
who live there.
That's the tragedy of the commons. Is that when no one owns it, then no one feels responsibility for it, and then everyone just takes whatever resources they can, and then it becomes destroyed.
There's a logical hole here. Whenever I have these conversations with like libertarians and objectivists about owning water, it's like, so you're familiar with the Cuyahoga River?
You're owning water right there.
Right. I'm talking about like a river.
Apparently, the Cuyahoga
Okay.
River caught on
That-
fire again last year.
What? Really?
Yeah, someone just told me about it in Cuyahoga Falls.
Let's talk about pollution because there's no system where this isn't a complicated issue. So let's be reasonable here. Let's compare China to the U.S. The Chinese river dolphin, the goddess of the river, which has been a symbol of China for centuries, has now gone extinct.
Wow.
The Chinese paddlefish, which I think is the second or largest freshwater fish, has now gone extinct. The pollution when you have a heavy centralized economy, which leads to poverty, means that government now is trying to pull resources from whatever it can because otherwise the people are starving. So when you have a bougie society, a whole food society, those are the ones who care and have the ability and wealth to preserve the environment, to preserve things like rivers. But I agree with you. No environmentalist or anyone on earth is going to have an easy solution when you're talking about water, which moves and
There's
you're
upstream,
upstream
downstream.
and weather and things like that. Yeah.
Have you ever seen? Did I ask you about this before?
Other than having a culture where this is revered and something that people care about.
So I'm very much in favor of environmental regulations. I don't know if the solutions to the world are always going to be easy or as clear cut, but have you ever seen this video? It's by, I think it's a YouTube channel called Gray Still Plays, I think it's called, where it's a game, I think it's called City State.
Okay.
And he decided to just make it pure anarchy. And he thought it was going to be a bunch of wealthy oligarchs and a bunch of poor people in drugs and gangs. And this video, he's a really funny YouTuber. It's a really great video because he's shocked by what happens. And so you watch him play the game and you watch the game played by other people. And they're like, I think we need environmental regulations. Okay, let's make sure we have housing for the poor. And you get a mix of poverty and pollution and you're fighting to keep things going. So he decides he's going to have no regulations, no taxes, and let people do whatever they want. And as the game progresses, there's no poverty anymore. Everyone's living in luxury, and he's going, what's happening? It literally says like capitalist oligarchy, and there's no poor people. Everyone's homes are being built up. There's ski resorts everywhere. He's like, why are there so many ski resorts?
Yeah, but the poor people have been made into cold cuts.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, just like
Now they have value.
The funny thing is, I guess the response you get from the left is that the game was clearly made by a capitalist. But in this simulator,
All games are made by capitalists. It's a game. It's not a gulag.
Exactly. I just think
Leisure is a function of capitalism.
Yeah.
Yes.
Explain. Come on.
What do you need to explain? Like
Communists don't play baseball.
No. First of all, baseball. No, baseball's a Western contrivance. But the point is, when you have a
Contrivance.
it is.
True,
They think it's a waste of time because it's not working for the culture. And it's, I forget why they specifically hated baseball, but that maybe because it was too American. But yeah, when you have these states where you're supposed to be working for your fellow man, any spare time, that means that's time you're taking away from poor people and hungry people. You need to be working.
Yeah, they particularly attributed leisure to specialization,
Yeah.
which came from capitalism.
You know that in North Korea, there are people whose job is to be a skateboarder.
I've never heard of North Korea.
Never heard of it.
No.
So there's this place. It's it's part of a peninsula. All
You
right?
mean like an island?
A place?
It's not an island. It's a peninsula.
Okay.
All right. And the northern part is, basically it's communist. But in this place, there are people who are told they have to skate every day by the government.
Are they competitive athletes?
Competitive. Yeah. And so they compete. I guess it's the idea. I don't know that they have the ability, or I'm not entirely sure. I've just seen the photos and I've read it in skateboarding magazines about the communists who are mandated to be skateboarders.
Well, let me break this down a little bit because, as you guys know, I wrote a book on North Korea, Dear Reader. So it's not. I mean, this is something that's taken a little bit out of context. Athletes in a country that's as poor as North Korea, as small as North Korea, is a great way to have reverence on the world stage because they're saying, look, we're tiny North Korea. We're the size of, well, they wouldn't use this example, the size of Pennsylvania, and we're taking on Russia. We're taking on the wicked U.S. imperialists and the Jap. I can't even finish the sentence because it's a slur. So this is a great, and also, if you're coming from nothing, now it's your chance to be a hero of the entire nation. So they are this is a big thing during the Olympics with the Cold War. This is a very common mechanism for these states. Cuba. I talk to people who know people in the UFC who think they engaged in these kind of super soldier experiments on kids to make these athletes who are later growing up to be UFC fighters because this is their and East German. The East German women's swim team were all on a certain type of steroid. And they asked the coach, they go, why do they all have such deep voices? And the coach said, they came here to swim, not to sing. This was the quote.
Wow.
So this is very common in these centralized countries where you are basically becoming a hero because it's not expensive to become a great skateboarder.
Well, don't you think that there's
I'm surprised that skateboarding is a thing there, to be honest, because that's such a capitalist bougie thing.
It's entering the Olympics.
Okay,
It was
I didn't realize
announced,
skateboarding was an Olympic event.
Well, I think its first Olympic event is going to be coming up in China.
Okay, that's why. Okay,
And over the
China.
past decade, it's been a huge point of contention for skateboarders because, skateboarders become for a long time very corporate, mainstream, cookie cutter, and that's kind of a bummer. Like a lot of the best for a while now, a lot of the best skateboarders kind of just where's the fun? Where's the wild? Where's the anarchy? Where's the punk rock?
Sure.
It's still there for sure.
Well, look at Green Day. Same thing with punk rock itself. It becomes Gap punk. Sorry,
Right.
Billy Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but definitely.
Dookie was good. In
But
my
I mean,
opinion.
we're-
I was
but
young when I
listen,
heard
listen.
that.
You love Dookie, Ian.
I love
You
Dookie.
listen to
Ian always loves Dookie.
Dude, I love what you
Right.
said, Michael, about centralized government and because the United States is kind of decentralized. Like states
In many
rule.
ways, yeah.
The cops in a state can be like, get out of here to the feds if they come and try and bust up their state laws, and that's very exciting to me. That we
Yeah. You have, I think Ohio basically said to the ATF, we're not going to enforce federal gun laws. I think West Virginia just passed something similar where they're all basically saying, even though the ATF says that they'll enforce these laws, you can't do anything about it. I went to the ATF's website reading about bump stocks because of this new court ruling that said a bump stock is not a machine gun. And they still say, no, you cannot have it. So I do find it interesting. When California legalized medicinal marijuana, the DEA still came in and raided these shops. Mm-hmm. So it is interesting that you can be in your state and know that you're safe from your state, basically. The feds still come in.
Yeah, I was there for that in L.A., and that was a big fear a lot of times that the feds would come and raid one of those shops.
Yep. And they did. I watched videos of it.
And there were times that the local cops would be like, get out of here, but it was the feds.
Yes.
Yep.
It's a weird a
weird
weird challenge.
what are your thoughts? Because, you're coming from a position of anarchy. When you have a state say it's legal to do these things and the feds say we're going to come in and bust them up anyway.
I think that's wonderful. I think anytime you have this kind of power versus power, it just shows you that law is a myth. And all law means is what people don't appreciate is law only works if you have the will to enforce it. So a lot of times things become legal not because some politicians went in and changed the law, but because there was no political will to enforce it. Same thing with the lockdowns. At a certain point, Cuomo said this. I got paid to read his book, and he says in the book, he says, I knew unless I got compliance from the voluntary compliance from the vast majority of the population, there was no way I could put this in place. So he's like, it was important for me to murder the elderly, but also to explain to the population why we're putting these things into place so that they would feel comfortable doing this. So this is the big misconception, is that versus 1984 versus Brave New World, so much of authoritarianism is not a function of a gun to your head like they have in North Korea. It's a function of the televangelists like John Oliver and Rachel Maddow on your TV every night.
Prothero.
Yeah, of course. Telling you this is good. People who don't do this are bad and evil or stupid, and good people behave in this certain way. And then you don't have to have the cost of enforcing compliance.
Cultural.
But then,
Yes.
don't you think at a certain point, we're talking about leisure, you end up with too much ignorance, weakness, laziness, and people who
this is, I think, the strongest criticism of capitalism, and I've come up with it, and I don't have a good answer. This comes from the paleo kind of diet and mindset. If you get to a point where Maslow's hierarchy of needs has been taken care of, meaning you don't have to worry about where the next meal is going to come from, you don't have to worry about the roof over your head, you don't have to worry about your health really, your brain is still wired to think in terms of resource scarcity. Our brains are still in terms of get more, get more, get more. And if you don't actually have problems in an evolutionary sense where no predator is going to eat you, you have plenty of food, you have shelter, your brain is going, and this is my hypothesis, is going to find problems to validate its emotion in the same way that depression and anxiety, people don't realize this, the emotion comes first, the depression and the anxiety, then your brain tells you, oh, you're depressed because you don't have a job. There's plenty of people who don't have a job who aren't depressed. It's just your mind tells you exactly what it needs to do to validate this emotion to perpetuate itself.
It's like in The Matrix when Smith tells, I think he's talking to Morpheus, and he says, we gave you paradise and your brains rejected it.
Yes.
It's exactly it. And I talked about this before. Several years ago, I did a segment where I said our generation has lost purpose. And and it's why one of the reasons Jordan Peterson was such a threat to the left. Because you had these kind of two factions I saw that were large factions, not necessarily the parent factions. The woke left, the social justice warriors, etc. People without purpose. They found their religion. It was their fight that must be fought, and it gave them reason for being.
It also gave them status, because if
Absolutely.
I am a lowest status white person, this is the only metric I have by assuming dominance over somebody else. I can be violently anti-racist and have something to hold over somebody else. I can't compete with them on any other level.
So you end up with also follower counts where
Sure.
they can build followers. On the other side, you had listless young men, sitting in their basements playing video games. Well, this was good because it was the demon, it was the enemy, it was the villain for many of these woke people to point at them and call them bigots. Jordan Peterson came along and gave these people purpose, responsibility. He told them, find the heaviest thing you can carry and carry it. Not that the guy's perfect, but a lot of people then started, hearing this message of self-help. And that kind of, it not only...
And independence.
Absolutely.
Meaning it's coming from inside instead of the people around you, and that's dangerous because they're the ones who are around you.
And they want to recruit from a pool of purposeless individuals.
Yes.
But if people found purpose from within, and they no longer found purpose from being accepted by a cult, well, then they created actual resistance. So Jordan Peterson had to be villainized in every capacity.
It was incredible to watch his interviews with, I think, Kathy Newman particularly, where she was like dumbfoundedly confused at what he was doing. She just didn't understand. Why are you giving them purpose?
So you're saying
why?
She's a Nazi?
So what I'm saying is, no, I wouldn't.
Look at this guy looking at me.
She was.
Well, I'm going to be on Jordan Peters' show on Monday, and it's going to be very exciting.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Her confusion
And I
was
will be
like,
Kathy Newmaning him.
like why? Why was
I'm
she?
not kidding.
The fact that she was confused was really weird.
Was
That
she really
She
confused?
wasn't
She
confused,
didn't
though.
get it. Like, why?
She was perceiving things that made sense in her context.
Oh yeah. From her.
She was translating, yeah. She was thinking he's inarticulate.
Right.
Because he's awkwardly saying what she agrees with already. She's incapable of perceiving other... The number of people who are incapable of the slightest bit of empathy is through the roof. They are absolutely incapable of seeing other perspectives. There are people who tell you with a straight face, why would you be interested in knowing what Osama bin Laden wanted? And it's like, well, if you want to destroy an enemy, don't you at least want to know their motivation? And that makes no sense to them. They think, if you're reading what bin Laden wanted, therefore you agree with him. And it's like, that's not even the implication at all.
no art.
Well,
of
that's why
War
they
is
want to
key.
ban all these books.
Yes.
Look, this is one of the biggest challenges we face. People who just, I wonder if we're seeing a separate, midwits is maybe not the right word, but maybe the right word, right? So people who are, what is it, slightly above average.
115 IQ, slightly above average.
But not smart enough.
Right.
We were
it's like
talking
someone,
about this.
let's interrupt you. It's like a guy who's 5'11". He's tall in that he's above average. There's no circumstance where his height would be noticeable or of interest. So if you're marginally intelligent, you might be the smartest person in the group, but no one will ever be impressed by your mind.
So we were talking about this earlier. In the George Floyd case, there's a video where the cop is walking George Floyd out of, he's walking him down the street, whether there's surveillance footage, and the cop says something like, "You've got foam on your mouth. Are you on something?" And Floyd says, "No, nothing, man." Then he's like, "But why do you have foam on your mouth?" And Floyd says, "I was hooping earlier." Hoops, shooting hoops. It's a reference to basketball. PBS reported this as, he'd been playing basketball. Maybe he got dehydrated, whatever that means. Well, Jack Posobiec posted this, and as a joke, I pulled up the Urban Dictionary definition, specifically highlighting hooping is a reference to smuggling narcotics up your, well, it's not,
Your rear end.
Yeah.
In a baggie.
Up the behind.
Posterior.
And so on the Urban Dictionary post, it says, "Get your hoopin' mug," because whatever word you search for, they tell you to buy the merch for it. So I made a joke in response to him, because I've been very silly on Twitter, saying, "Don't forget to buy your hoopin' mug." And then I showed the Urban Dictionary thing. And these leftists were like, "Tim is so dumb. He doesn't know that hooping means basketball." And another person was like, "For someone who claims to be from the city, it's shocking." And I said, you guys are the kind of people that thought I was serious when I said impeach the queen.
Yes.
When we have people like that, they're active in the conversation, but not smart enough to perceive their sarcasm or humor or maybe the nuance to the conversation, and they vote on these ideas. It's like when you mentioned they didn't want to understand Osama bin Laden.
Sure.
The similarity I see there is that their only thought is smash with club. Like they see a bad guy and they go, hit with club, hit with club. And so when someone makes a joke, they go, that's the same thing as the bad guy, hit with club, hit with club. And you're like, there's a whole bunch of complex nuance and jokes and humor, and they lack the capability to understand and perceive this.
Isn't this a huge source of optimism? That it's no, but I'm not kidding.
All the dumb people.
Yeah, but think about it. Who would you rather go against, Skynet or a bunch of guys with clubs?
Yeah.
Oh,
This is a no-brainer. So, Tim, you've correctly identified it. Although they're
That's not a problem.
behind their keyboards, although they're on Twitter, they're not literally dressed like Fred Flintstone. You're dealing with thousands and millions of people whose only mindset to an opponent is smash with clubs. Clubs are such a bad weapon. They're not even in Clue. So
Yeah.
this is why I'm so optimistic about the future, because you innocently just now correctly identified the nature of the enemy, and this isn't some great Terminator from the future. This is Fred Flintstone.
Yes, but there are people who are smart who have realized without principle, they don't have any, didn't have any to begin with, they can weaponize the hive and use it as a weapon.
Correct.
They can weaponize it.
But humans run the country and the world and not bees. So I agree with you. Bees are dangerous and bees can kill people, and they're not something to be taken lightly, even in terms of insects. I'm not being facetious at all. But at a certain point, it's like there's a ceiling. There's only so much you could do with bees. Yeah, you could have dogs that shoot bees out of their mouth, but other than that, it's
And you
Yeah,
can
but-
also
but look,
pacify the hive.
yeah.
Perhaps you can be smart, you can throw a wrench in the spokes, you can figure things
Make
out.
music, fun
but
games
But
and
there's
things.
substantially...
Or you could become the queen.
Maybe we all are.
But how do you become the queen of a hive of people who...
Well, you're gonna need some
Psychic
blush,
power, baby.
some eyeliner,
Meditation.
fake
The
eyelashes.
The people who become the queen are the emotional manipulators. They have no principles. Or
Well,
at least they
You
don't
could have
care.
principles and
Yeah.
be an emotional manipulator.
Yeah, you
It's
could.
called a wife.
I suppose then what you're saying is we as smart individuals should recognize
I
that...
didn't say we were smart individuals. Let's not put words in my mouth.
Okay. So what you're saying is those who
Now
have
you're
the
Kathy
ability...
Newman.
Those
so
are
what you're saying
principles.
is you're
So
a
what
big-
you're saying,
so
Michael,
what you're
is that
saying
you're a
is that
bigot.
you're a drone.
So what we should do then
is live like lobsters.
should we then speak honestly to those who we feel as perceptive and understanding, but then lie to the dumb masses to control them to gain power?
No. I think we should be honest that we're going to
He's
try
asking
and
me what I'm
manipulate
saying?
them. Okay, Michael, you answer this one. Take it.
No, what Michael is saying is no. Ian, I do want to hear
So
your
what he's
response.
saying
Oh,
is-
I think we just honestly acknowledge that we are going to manipulate people with the
I'm not gonna do
psychic
that.
power and do it for righteousness and be honest about our own faults.
No, I would say, and Hotep Jesus has this quote, which is not particularly unique to him, to realize you're behind enemy lines, study what the communists did back in the 20s and 30s, study what gay people had to do for decades, and figure out how to pass. So when you're talking to someone who's, this sounds like the cop hit with club. Once you've identified you're dealing with that kind of person, you talk to them in a certain way. Once you're dealing with people who are slightly red-pilled, whether they're on the far left, like Jimmy Dore, or somewhere else, you know you can have a conversation and it's going to go somewhere. So the big mistake people have, and this is a function of going to a government school where everyone's treated as one class, both in the literally a class, but also the same kind of population, is thinking everyone thinks like you and everyone's wired like you. They're not.
Wow.
So you have to realize, yeah, there are some bees and there are some wasps. Wasps aren't bees at all. They're actually ants. And realize, okay, I'm dealing with this kind of thing. I have to address them in a certain way. If I'm dealing with somebody else, I have to address them in a different way. And that's just, and gay people do this for a very long time. Communists had to do this in a very long time. And black people had to do this. Mulattoes, this has happened something in the 1920s, the Harlem Renaissance. These are things that you have to study and figure out. And figure out, and here's the other thing, because they're not bright, they're very big on picking up words. That's why the term for African American used to be Afro-American, and then previous ones, which I don't even know if I can say anymore. The point is they kept changing these terms because they would know as they roll out the new term, if you're using new language, you're part of the in-group. So it's very easy. Just adopt their language when you need to pass, and it'll be like Terminator. They see you use the right terms, they'll leave you alone to move on, and then you could just go about your business. And it's not easy to do, but they're playing the long con, and they've had over 100 years at this.
That's a technique. My understanding of this stuff, having been in it for like 10 years, you're right. I've talked with some activists and made some points, legitimate points, based on their own ideology, and caused people on Facebook to back down and apologize. Notably, like, there was an argument, a legitimate political argument that I was having on Facebook. This was like a year or two ago, where one person was basically talking about social justice and race issues and critical race theory. And I started arguing against this, saying freedom, liberty, etc. And they were like, you don't understand. When I pointed out, as everybody knows the meme, that Tim Pool is actually mixed race, they immediately apologized and started arguing with me and agreeing with me because their own ideology essentially dictated it. When I said, if it is incumbent upon the minority to define something that you right now as a white person hear me and recognize my opinions based on my experience, and they said, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
And so it's particularly insulting, but I said that to make a point about their own, if you truly believe this, then wouldn't you then agree with me and argue with me? And they said, actually, yeah, I will.
But they don't truly believe anything. They're just they don't use language the same way you use language. I talked about this with James Lindsay, who was on my show. You're welcome this week. They use language as a form of asserting status and dominance. So at a certain point, you have to realize there's no mind there, and there's not really a point in engaging. It's just power games. And what do you need power games for when you don't want to be part of the beehive?
I don't want to be a part of that stupid game. I don't look, I worked for nonprofits, and
the thing is, you are part of it. It's social order, and what you're explaining, Michael, is basically
no, you misunderstand, and you got to let me finish.
Hard times.
So my point was, what we're being told to do is, when we're in their system because we're behind enemy lines, we need to just speak their language, and I won't do that. I did that at nonprofits. They said, here's how you communicate with people. I understood the sale. I understood the pitch, and there are some circumstances where I'll put it this way: I'll be polite. You know, I was at a bar recently and someone told me they were a huge fan of Kamala Harris. And instead of saying like, yeah, Kamala Harris is so great, I was like, I am not a fan, but I'll be polite. I don't want to, get into any contentious, arguments over why. And she asked me like, no, what do you think? And I was like, Kamala Harris kept, minorities kept in prison beyond their sentence to use as $1 an hour slave labor for fighting wildfires. I think that's wrong. I'm willing to say it. I get it. It's going to offend their delicate sensibilities, but I don't care to do that.
But what's the upside of engaging with this person?
I want to keep out any specific details, but there was.
Okay, that's different. Okay, but I'm saying in general, if there's someone at a bar and they're like, I love Kamala Harris, unless you're trying to take her to bed, it's just like, okay, lady, I don't care what you think.
No, but there's instances of business relationships.
That's very different.
Where
That's very
you're
different.
talking to someone and trying to figure out if you can work with someone. And if they come out and say these things, my simple answer is, I'm not going to do business.
I think the behind enemy lines metaphor makes me think of hard times make strong men.
Yeah.
When you're in a desperate fighting for survival situation, you have to use their language. And we don't have that in this society because we haven't been in hard times. So we're like, I'm not going to play that game. But it's like, this is a fight for our lives. This daily grind is real, and people are dying on the street. People's houses are getting burned, and that's just in the United States.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is true or not, but I remember being told when I was a kid, the symbol of the fish, where it came from. And there's a bunch of,
the Jesus fish, you mean?
Yeah. There's stories about like Jesus and two fish, and then there's the dawning of the age of Pisces and things like that.
I thought that was Dr. Seuss.
What?
Sorry.
One fish, two fish.
Fish
what someone told me is that what they would do is, because Christians were persecuted, when they met someone they would draw a curved line in front of them. And if the other person finished a curved line, it would make the shape of a fish, and they knew that it was safe to talk to them about what they believed. I don't know if that's actually true or not. I just was told that by some religious folk when I was like very young about how it was like they had to keep this a secret, and so they would draw the fish symbol between each other. And that's like it's an interesting idea of what you were mentioning about what people have to do to learn to navigate systems where they're basically outgroup and threatened and they could be destroyed.
And also there's a huge asymmetry between cost and benefit. You know what I mean? Like the benefit of this person is very low, but the cost could be your life. So you really need to figure out how to do the dance.
I mean, for me, I'm going to mind my own business, and I'm going to keep speaking how I want to speak, and I'm going to tell everyone to F off. And then if they come for me, I don't know, whatever.
That can work too.
If it comes to the point where YouTube's
media.
like, you can no longer say that, like Tim Pool, you can. It is now banned to defend Kyle Rittenhouse. I'll be like, yeah, I'm banned.
Yeah,
everyone. Twitch did it. You literally can't defend Kyle Rittenhouse on Twitch.
Is that right?
So we had Destiny on the show, and he's a leftist, and we had a debate. He's very much into critical race theory. He was banned from the partner program for defending Kyle Rittenhouse. He's a leftist guy, and he said it was the clearest case of self-defense I've ever seen. They banned him from the partner program.
Well, Twitch is owned by Amazon, and Amazon runs the servers for Twitter, so maybe we'll see some Twitter activity in that vein.
But I'm also very hopeful that now that so many people are aware of what Amazon's power is in this context. You think of Amazon as products, you don't think of it as running servers and booting off Gab. What was the other one? Sorry, Parler. That there already, I'm sure, are people in place who are like, okay, we need to create workarounds so Amazon can never do this again.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a matter of a couple of years at most, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. I would love it decentralized.
Yeah. But I mean,
we're talking about doing it.
Am I wrong that there's lots of people who are trying to work?
You're right about that.
Yeah.
How about we go to Super Chats, my friends? If you haven't already, smash that like button. Seriously, do it. It helps. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify, leave us a good review. Give us 5 stars. And go to timcast.com, become a member, because we're going to have a bonus segment for members only coming up after this show, usually around 11 when we get it up. But also, don't forget to share this show on YouTube. Subscribe. We're so close to 1 million subscribers. We're like 10K away, and would love to break it with all of your help, everybody who's watching. What is this? What?
I was just excited.
Oh, yeah, we're so close.
Me and Michael made eye contact.
Yeah,
It was
it was a moment.
we're on it.
And then the YouTube will send us that gold award,
all I want.
and then we'll be banned in a month, but we'll see.
I
Yes.
just want
All
that
right.
gold thing.
Smash that like button. Let's read these super chats. Let's see what y'all got saying. What y'all got going on. What y'all got saying. I don't even know what I'm talking
What
about
do they like best about me?
There you go.
Please, everyone, super chat what you like best about Michael Malice. That is important. I got a bunch of emails from people that said what I like best about Michael Malice is, and we actually hired a guy because of it.
Good. I hope he had a good answer.
He did have a good answer.
What was his
Last night they
answer?
were like-
I don't remember.
Then it wasn't good.
No, it was. It
You'd
was.
remember it if it was good.
But it was also interesting that many of these people saw you tweet this. So for those that don't understand the context, there was I think you referenced someone we should hire.
I recommended it.
in a
His
recommendation.
username's Lockout Days on YouTube.
And then you said,
Twitter.
the email better say what I like best about Michael Malice is. And then I said, if we don't see that, we throw it in the trash as a joke. And then we got a small handful of people who were paying attention. So I was like,
Attention to detail is extremely underrated in terms of hiring.
Being
'Cause
active
if
in the conversation.
And if someone's being, I hate this word, being proactive about like, well, just in case he asked this question, let me give him an answer. That's someone who's ahead of the game.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, they were paying attention. So I was like, that shows these are you people who are likely active in the space. They know what's going on. They're following similar people. It's a good sign. All right, let's read some super chats. Need to drink more water.
Oh, yeah.
Spencer Prudhomme says, Tim, I'm still waiting on my tinfoil hat shirt. Any news when it comes out? Man, I am just dropping the ball on this one. The tinfoil hat, I'm a gorilla.
Oh, yeah.
I'll get it done.
What you can do is go to maliceshirts.com and get my COVID positive shirt.
Feel it. He's so
Can you do me a favor and write down tinfoil hat gorilla so I remember?
I
to just
will write this down.
set it
I
up?
have the tinfoil hat in my house. Alex Jones'
Alex's-
tinfoil. Yeah, it's in
So
my kitchen.
we have a version of the gorilla wearing a
Wait,
tinfoil hat.
Okay.
And we're going to make probably do it as like a limited edition. I think the Diamond Hands gorilla will be going away soon as well. The I Am a Gorilla will be around forever.
Writing this
But I
down.
think the special versions will only leave up for like a
I'm
month
part
or so.
of meme history.
Meme history.
sure.
And let's give a shout out to the guy who made that video, Pink Trip.
Which
Okay.
one was that?
The I'm Gorilla video. When he made a little a video of you and me and Alex.
Yeah. I wanted to use that as an ad to promote the show on YouTube and run that as an ad. Like, watch this. and
Yeah.
then have people confused like, what? I guess I'll click it.
I don't know what
Those
this
videos
is.
are great, by the way.
Yeah, they
I love
are.
that stuff. All right, let's read some more.
He's never made one of me though.
The Curly Afro says, just like the states that paid blood and treasure to enter the Union, so did Puerto Rico. For 104 years, we have paid the price of admission. We earned statehood. Statehood, por favor. By the way, apes together strong. Hey, there you go.
That's true.
All right. Some people shouting out Tom McDonald. Would love to have him on the show. We'll see if that happens. Make 1984 fiction again. He says, your 4 o'clock segment I mostly agreed with, but he was a criminal despite the fact that he was a drug addict. Being addicted to drugs is not a disease, it's a choice. I was addicted to opiates for 8 years, my brother for years, and he's no longer with us. I just think, I hear what you're saying. I think, okay, it's a crime, fine. But when you get detained, it should be like, we're bringing you to a clinic. We're not going to put you in a cell, and we're not going to take away your rights. We want to make sure we can help you get through this. You know what I mean?
And I know this argument, but it's not always an informed choice. Like, you don't know. None of us in this room, well, I can't speak for you guys. None of us know what it's like to go through withdrawal from heroin. You might know theoretically, okay, withdrawal really sucks. But unless you've, like, here's a parallel example that's not going to be as political. Unless you've had to deal with suicidal ideation, you're not going to understand what that feels like. I mean, God forbid, I hope none of you ever had to deal with that. Go ahead.
And I have to interject here because I worked in a cardiac unit and I worked with people who were withdrawing from multiple different drugs, including alcohol. They actually closed down a ward close to my house because too many babies were being born there that were already addicted to heroin. You don't know what hand you're dealt. You don't know what people are dealing with. And past a certain point, it is a physiological dependency.
Yeah. So. We got a very, very important super chat here from Jem R. Wow. Serious stuff. He says, for Malice, looking dapper. Enjoyed his chat with James Lindsay recently, too. Looking dapper, Michael.
Thank you.
Dapper. Oh, I love it.
MK Painter says, Michael, tell me your best radio-free Armenia joke. Is that going to get us in trouble, or what is that?
I don't know what that means. I'm not
Armenian.
Great. I'm from Ukraine. Radio-free Armenia. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be... I don't know what that means.
Socratic Disciple says, Tim, your idea about preventing people from funding candidates outside their district is flawed. Just give money to a relative who lives in that area and have them make the donation for you. Aha, but that is actually a felony. Oh. Yeah, if you try to donate to a candidate... Well, if you donate to a candidate... And then I'm like, okay, now we'll give Ian money. Now Ian can do it. It's called a felony. Isn't that what happened to Dinesh D'Souza?
It happens to a lot of people because basically the limit's pretty low, or it was, and then it's like
2,800.
Yeah, so if it's 2,800, I'll be a bundler or whatever. I think this is what they were doing. I'll find 10 people. I'll write out the $28,000 check and just put down their names. So this was a workaround, but this is not something that they got away with.
Yeah, no, it's a crime to do that. So I definitely think, I think the gist of the conversation, especially after sleeping on it, we talked about it. My current position is I do think it's a problem that a handful of billionaires can suppress the will of so many people. I just don't know what the solution is because it's way too much of a complicated problem.
Let's have a long conversation if I ever come on, because this is something that is very complicated, and I don't know that there is an alternative. I don't know that the millions of people have a will.
Ooh, spicy.
I'm turned off by popularity contests, especially when it comes to running the show.
Especially because I keep losing them.
You'll win, Michael. You're a winner.
You got this.
AJ says, hey, Tim, first-time super chatter, look into Smartland's cryptocurrency built off the Stellar platform. Right on. Dez says, told my friend I got red-pilled last summer. Out of curiosity, he Googled it and thought I became a misogynist and white supremacist despite being Mexican.
Where's the lie?
Yeah. That was the article.
No lies detected.
You got. I mean, that's why I don't like saying red-pilled. I just say, a realization. Man, I realized the media wasn't telling me the truth. It's an easy way to put it.
And
that's not the same as a red pill, though.
Well, how would you describe it?
Being red-pilled, let's see if I can quote my book accurately. Being red-pilled is the realization that what is presented by fact by the corporate press is in actuality a carefully designed narrative meant to keep some very unpleasant people in power.
Yeah. Butters Oregano says 2 things. Malice needs a beanie that matches his tie.
Hold on. What is this? You get a super chat and you get 2 things? 1 thing per chat. You guys got the wallets? Open them up.
He says, Malice needs a beanie that matches his tie. And the difference between a fiscal elite using their money to buy advertisements and someone watching your show is the choice to watch your show versus being forced to visually imbibe the propaganda.
Okay.
Orion Nero says, how far do you guys believe they'll try pushing the censorship nonsense? Who could say what when they're eating each other alive for the power?
As far as they can.
Crowder didn't break any rules.
The only thing that stops it is going to be counterpower. That's just inertia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah, that's why wouldn't they? They're clearly totalitarian in their worldview. Like there's they make no bones about it. Any country, and if something bad is happening anywhere on Earth, it's somehow their business. So there's no limits. What? We got a big super chat.
Big one.
It's not a big one. It's just one of the best.
Is it Adrian? Hi,
The best,
Adrian.
no. Bug HQ for us says, I own a cricket farm in NC named Bug HQ. Please check us out for your reptile food, guys. Tim, I'd love to send you some free crickets for Chicken City.
Yes.
It's fun to watch them attack a few hundred. Absolutely. We will be reaching out to you,
I'm
Bug.
gonna write this down.
Why
Bug
would
HQ.
you? Why would you want to pay those exorbitant cricket prices for something the farmer probably spit in?
What?
Fair point.
That was an old Simpsons joke about orange juice.
About-
Crickets are so expensive.
The farmer probably spit in. Oh, man. What, back when Simpsons were good?
Bug
Yeah.
HQ.
That was when there was a plague that hit Springfield, the Osaka flu, and Mom went to jail.
Yeah. The juicer.
Yeah.
Graf von Tyrol says, it's a complete disgrace that we're more likely to get more matter-of-fact news about America from British and Australian news sources.
Al
that true?
Jazeera too.
But why is
sometimes.
that a disgrace? This triggered me a little bit. You are being blue pilled. If it's like when the guy's a player and he tells the girl, I'm not a player, baby. I just want to get to know you. Of course, the corporate press is going to tell you, we're honest. We're here to tell you the news about America. Why would you believe them at face value?
Good question. It's
I'm sorry.
easy,
I just saw a super chat, and I'm
no.
just losing it.
Distracted.
All right.
Pops Vindaloo says, rabbit butt cut.
What?
We were talking about
Oh,
rabbits eating their own poop.
butt cud.
And so he super chatted, rabbit butt cud.
RBC.
Oh, man, rabbits are gross. They're not easy to care for. A lot of people think they are.
And they're
It's
not
food.
friendly.
No, they're not.
And they're always panicky.
yeah, skittish.
Amy Sedaris is always into rabbits as pets.
All right, let's see. I can't. This is in Cyrillic, I think. I can't read it.
I know how to read it.
It says
You will die in a fiery plane crash.
Iren, the backwards N, A-N-E-K.
I can't read it when you're reading in English. What is this, Helen? This is-
Backwards R,
That means
a
ya.
circle with a line through it. I'm kidding. I don't know. So they say, and it says rubles. What insane historical trivia will we get today from Michael? Maybe some opinions on Batko Machno. Machno?
Musla?
I don't know.
M-A-C what?
M-A-K-H-N-O.
H. Mach.
Batko?
I don't. I'd have to see it. I only learned how to read Russian in college, so I'm very bad at it. Well, they just wasted their rubles.
No, there you go.
Sorry.
J-Max says, I had opioids prescribed to me for back pain following a military work accident. Your body starts to build a resistance to the prescribed amount, and it feels like you have to take more just to ease the pain. I had to stop taking them just to spare my body permanent damage.
Wise move.
I was given Percocets. I took one, and it was just like floating on a cloud, man.
It's
like you said.
Yeah,
It was
took
like-
that methadone once.
This is
Everything
not an
was-
endorsement of taking
No,
Percocet.
no. I'm telling you, this
No,
is a
this
horror
This is
bad,
the
story.
yeah.
danger of taking
Yeah.
Percocet.
Horror
kids.
story. And so I said, the pain's. I'd rather have the pain. Absolutely.
You're good. Here's the thing: you're gonna have the pain now, or you're gonna have it later.
Right.
So you'd rather pay the little pain now,
Short term.
than the years of paying on that mortgage.
Yep.
And hey, THC and medical marijuana is such a blessing, I think, that this country has yet to fully adopt, but it also is a painkiller. It's like a natural homeopathic.
What do you know about weed?
I've heard about it.
Check this out.
I read about it in a book
Hey, this is a
once.
really important point. Someone brought up in Super Chat. We didn't get to. I did mention this on my 4 o'clock segment. The purpose of pleading the fifth could be because he sold the drugs that could possibly have caused the overdose death of George Floyd.
Oh, sure.
He could be charged with manslaughter, especially if there's an acquittal of Chauvin. That actually is third-degree murder, I believe. If you, so I read through the laws. It says if you supply someone with a substance, a controlled substance that results in their death, it's a murder charge. He pled the fifth because the defense is going for he died from the overdose, and they were probably going to be like, and he did it.
I'm not a lawyer, none of us are, but I'm going to just throw this out there because this is something I thought was pretty standard practice. You plead the fifth. What happens when they give you immunity? Can't they force you to
Yes.
testify?
Yep.
So this might just have been a pause.
Right. So they'll offer him immunity, and then he'll be subpoenaed and forced to testify. And then the defense will say, did you sell him these drugs? And then he'll look to the jury and say, reasonable doubt.
By the way, I also want to point out this speaks to the anarchist idea that equality under the law is a complete lie. Because if there was equality under the law, there's no such thing as forcing someone to testify because you can't acquit them of a crime just because you want to get somebody else.
Yeah.
Everyone has to be tried or no one.
Right. Gray Gianicos, first super chat, might as well be on my birthday. Happy birthday, Gray. The province of BC has decided to shut down indoor dining, so my family business in a town of 4,000 people has to pay for the rise in case numbers, predominantly in the big cities. P.S. Trevor sucks. Who's Trevor?
Oh, he sucks.
Yeah, he's the worst.
That's what I heard.
Yeah.
I just now heard that. Yes.
Trevor.
Oh God, I don't ever want to hear his name again.
I'm going to read the super
Creeping
chat.
me out.
I'm going to read the super chat.
Do it.
That's your job.
But you might not be happy about it.
Well, then you'll be very unhappy about it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I'm reading it anyway. Eric Miller says, so, Michael, you say we didn't deserve Donald Trump. Now, do we deserve Joe Biden?
Okay. God, Eric. God help me. You're right. You're right. You're right. I'm
Oh,
triggered.
no. I didn't read the last part.
Oh,
I'm
there's
saving
more?
that.
Okay. I didn't say.
Okay.
God damn it, Eric. You're worse than Trevor.
All right,
Collusion.
you ready for the last?
I don't think I am.
Also, love the Clark Kent look you got going on.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
Yeah,
That
what?
part I
What?
don't get.
Yeah, I don't get that part.
My quote, which Tim has picked up on very well, and Lydia as well, and I'm assuming Ian, is whenever I have a Trump tweet, or now he's the press releases, I say we don't deserve him. That could be read as he's awful, or like we don't deserve this,
awesome.
or that he's awesome. And it's intentionally both, because he is awful in many ways, and he is awesome in other ways.
There you go.
All right, Alex Moore says,
And no, we don't deserve a president or any government.
I like
well,
that.
you do.
Deserve it.
You do. What's his name? Alex?
Eric.
Eric.
Yeah.
Eric, you're worse than Trevor. You deserve Gitmo.
Snap.
Governors to
Wow.
Gitmo.com.
all right, Alex Moore says, this super chat is for your members only rant on not backing down last night. It was absolutely awesome. When does the dating site kick off? I don't think we're going to make a Timcast dating site. But
plans.
yeah, I got
promised
mad. I
that.
was yelling.
That's
I
really
was
good.
just like, I'm so sick of I growing up in Chicago and seeing people just abuse and beat. It's just like, it's very much just like a superhero movie where you watch the villain beating down the poor people and the hero comes in and he makes them stop. And I'm like, nah, dude, there's no superheroes here.
I don't know what you're
There's
talking about.
one.
Villains are real, but the superheroes are only on TV. That means you have to stand up to these people. And if
Yes.
everybody did, things would be different. It'd be very different if people were just brave enough.
Okay, first of all, I think that's my favorite thing I've heard you say today, and I'm going to build on that to another point. I've given a couple of talks to young kids about networking, and one of my favorite piece of advice to give them, I say, if you know someone is having their birthday and they're not doing anything, take them out for dinner and do it for selfish reasons. And the audience laughs, and I go, I'm serious, because the guy who takes people out for their birthday is awesome. You could be that person.
Yeah.
All it's costing you is $30, $40. You have that power. Maybe you're not going to be literally Superman, but you could still be a better version of yourself. And when you're a better version of yourself, happiness and success follows, and everyone has that capacity.
Only a few.
Almost,
only-
except
only-
for Trevor. He's garbage.
I know, isn't it the
Wow.
worst?
I read that. in a book.
There's look, there's only a few people who would ever live up to like the strength of Superman. You know what I mean? There's just like a small,
Very few.
very few.
Supergirl,
Probably.
the
Maybe
Dev
one.
M, Bizarro, Streaky, Comet, the Super
I just mean
Horse.
figuratively. You know what I
Monel.
mean? Figuratively.
Aryan.
Some people,
Supermans they
some
made
some
that
some
one.
people they try to claim or masquerade perhaps as someone as great as
Every
Superman,
once
but
in a
they're
while-
deceivers and manipulators
Every
and
once
liars.
in a while, you get one person.
You sound like Martin Luther. And their lies.
Lies.
Well, I'll just tell you this, man. You got to be careful about the false superheroes,
yeah.
who brandish themselves, the
Yeah, I
symbols of the heroes.
False
You mean
prophets.
you mean Sully?
Sully?
Yeah,
Who's that?
the failed Muhammad Atta,
Oh, I don't know. No,
the
I don't-
pilot.
Oh, that's right. He couldn't
Yeah.
fly
Yeah,
the
he
plane or
went-
whatever.
The plane in
He
the-
wanted to fly into the Empire State Building, and he had to land into a river.
I see. Okay. that makes
East
sense.
River.
All right. Yes, I see someone
he's a
calling
stutterer.
me. Got some people call me a dim fool, which is always
Always refreshing.
original and
Trending.
unique. Sonny James says, "I'd love to argue about cultural issues, but I beg you, Tim or Michael, please do a segment on biosurveillance and the powerful interests involved in backing TSA 2.0, the new fake war on germs."
Oh, that's a great topic. That was a great topic. Thank you. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a long conversation. We'd have to do some research.
And Ben
but this is
Stewart.
very smart. This is next gen totalitarianism.
I would like to watch you guys with Ben Stewart talk about that. He has a lot of research on that.
Have you ever talked with Jimmy Dore? Have you done a show with him?
We follow each other. I've slid into his DMs. No reply.
Ah, bummer.
Jimmy D.
Jimmy's a good dude.
I know. I'm a fan.
I've talked to him periodically. I've been on his show. I just
That
think
must be nice.
Yeah, well, see, us, people up here in the clouds.
You mean like me and Jordan?
Sometimes don't. Oh.
I call him Jordan now.
Oh, I see.
Sorry, Dim Fool.
No,
No time for the. He's Dim.
Shots fired. Not a Michael.
Get all those beanies off your bed, asshole.
I love
sorry.
Pim Tool and Dim Fool, because it's like.
You know what the best of those is? Tronal Dump.
But I love
Someone
that.
said that. I'm like, oh my god, this is actually clever.
Amazing.
But you know what? It's funny to me. Like when I see people tweet Pim Tool or Dim Fool or whatever, or Tim Fool is a Dim Fool. It's just like seeing chickens cluck. You know what I mean?
It's-
Super clever.
There's like you didn't say a thing to me.
Right.
But I think that's very tongue in cheek and kind of ribbing you. It's not serious, right?
No, a lot of the Pim Tool one is serious.
Okay, but
I'm like,
the
which-
Dim Fool is clearly fans of the show who are ribbing with you.
No. Like it's the left who started.
I
Yeah.
thought that was because of my knock knock joke.
I think it was.
Oh, it's been on for a long time.
Dim Fool, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I
yeah.
thought it was my joke. Okay, I'm telling you, a lot of those people are taking it for my joke.
Oh, I think it's hilarious. It makes me laugh every time I see it.
Yeah, you're
I-
a big.
I don't-
Your barrel laughs, Tim.
Yeah, I don't understand. I don't understand what it is about these leftists who when they come at me on Twitter or they try and insult me. That I think you know what, I'm gonna stop. It's clear they're just saying it so their friends see it, because it impacts me and like.
And
It does
sometimes
nothing.
they
You know what I mean?
trust
Sure.
you. but
I of all people know what you mean, because I get that too, and I'm just like, what do you think this? When people tell you like sit down and shut up, I'm like, literally, what do you think this is going to accomplish on Twitter? You're not in my house. I am sitting down. I'm in my underwear all the time. So how
It's
are
a-
you in a position to tell me to shut up?
But it's a net
I get that.
positive. Like so when I first started getting Twitter followers and stuff during Occupy Wall Street, my initial reaction in the first week or so was anxiety. No joke. I had never had this level of attention. All of a sudden,
Sure,
people
yeah.
were tweeting at me like crazy, insulting me and calling me crazy things. Half of them were nice, half of them were bad. And I was like, what is this? I've
Yeah,
never
yeah.
And then very quickly, I was like, these people are dumb. And I started ignoring it.
They're bees,
But then a week or two later, I started getting excited every time I saw it. You know why?
because you are sexually attracted to bees.
Yeah, I was just like, wow, this is great.
And
because every
Sting me,
single
baby.
time these people were tweeting at me, I started to realize I was like, man, am I doing something important?
Right.
Like, am I all of a sudden one of these people that like?
Am I an
everyone's
influencer?
Yeah, you're like, wow.
Yeah.
I started realizing the hate didn't matter because it doesn't change my opinions.
Right.
It just means that my opinions matter to people.
You
Yes.
Whether
can
they
read
like it or hate it.
the love and the hate as like a social study, and not to take either of them personally. It can blow your ego up or rip it down if you let it take it personally. Don't. But just look at the waves of emotions that are occurring, and then kind of incorporate that into how you're behaving and try and modulate.
People ask me sometimes how I deal with it, and I don't think I'm good at dealing with it in this sense, because being a New Yorker all my life, if a homeless person comes up to you and starts screaming things, even if those insults are things you might be insecure about or are true, it's not going to permeate. Your only thought in your mind is, I have to get away from this homeless person before it escalates, or I don't care this case. So if someone comes at you on Twitter and says blah, 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 it's just like, I didn't know you existed 3 seconds ago. You don't like me. That's fine. Like, I'm not for everyone. Go live your best life. And why would you think I would care?
Yeah, I was thinking about playing a song with different qualities of instruments. Like maybe you need the right quality of instrument to really appreciate the music.
Yeah. That's a great metaphor.
Like
honestly.
a theremin.
Yes, of course.
Conti says, I'm in the military and now being told that if I own any cryptocurrency, I need to sell it or risk losing my security clearance. Same with marijuana stocks. I find that to be ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous. If you're signing up for the military, they own you.
Yeah, man.
So it's not ridiculous at all.
So Ghost Crusader says, Tim, PayPal can snap their fingers and end your
Yep,
career.
very
That's
much.
absolutely true.
Yep.
And so what I tried
Many horror stories.
But so your banking institutions can, and these other platforms can. What I'm saying is we need to minimize the links in the chain, because if you
Yep.
have 10
Yep.
different services, any one of them, so you're creating more risk. So minimize that risk.
To be pedantic, you want to maximize the links. So if one link breaks, you've got 80 backup links.
You want to maximize the amount of chains
Yeah,
with
yeah.
different links. So what I'm
Yes.
saying is, if you have a business
Right. Not one. Yeah.
where you upload to 3 channels, then you've got, all of these different companies. I guess I should say, it's not necessarily a good analogy. If you're on Locals, then it's you to Locals.
Yes.
And then you have your payment processor, and then Locals has DNS. The problem is that with each and every person resting in the basket of Patreon, Locals, or Subscribestar, or any of these platforms, it's putting weight on their chain between their services. And at any point, they might be like, we gotta, toss some people out of the bucket, otherwise we go down with everyone else. Minimize that so that there's one chain with a bunch of people dangling
Right.
evenly, and everything's fine. Well, one person might get thrown out by somebody else, but I just want to minimize who has control over this.
I heartily endorse this product or event.
All right, let's see where we're at. Jay Stewart says, Tim, by banning people, they divide how much support they can receive. Corporations can work together and provide a cheap central location for access. But if people want to support you and Crowder, the cost has suddenly doubled. Well, how much are you willing to put forward to defend the ideas that you like or the shows that you like? I mean, there are people who spend, just without even thinking about it, they're probably spending $100 between their Disney Plus, their Netflix, their Hulu, and, Paramount or whatever, CBS. All these different things, $10-15. How much are you willing to spend for independent channels? I think one of the problems is, and this is why we want to do shows, someone says it's $10 a month to be a member at timcast.com for this one show. And then it's, $10 a month for Mug Club, and then it's $10 a month. Now it's like I want 5 shows and it costs me $100, whereas I can get 300 shows from one Netflix or from one Prime or whatever.
Sure.
So that's why I'm like, we need to have as many shows as possible under, timcast.com membership. So we're going to have shows, we're going to have documentaries. I'm going to hire some reporters, we're going to get writers, and we're going to make this whole big, massive thing.
What I was shocked at, and this is because of my senior citizen status, how many people there are who are tripping over themselves, who see, I guess this is kind of like at a restaurant, like no one doesn't tip. Like it's just a given you're going to tip. How many people, and this is something that happened very recently in internet culture, are very eager to be like, I own a business, I'm a stay-at-home mom. It's important to me that you're taking those bullets and up front. So let me give you those $5 a month because you're saying things that I can't. I didn't realize how many of those people are there, and they pay my rent, and I'm very, very grateful. And this is kind of my immigrant brain. If you've never met me and you're giving me that $5, that's like buying me a drink. That is such a sign of respect, and I do not take it for granted. And it really is very moving when I get to be that guy.
It is like in Dragon Ball Z when Goku needing to defeat
I don't
Vegeta.
know. This is nerd talk.
Summoned the energy for the spirit bomb, and everyone gave their energy to Goku.
$5 a piece into one fiery blast of energy.
My virginity just came back.
I'm going to mispronounce your name again. He says, Gray Giannikos, mispronouncing my name is a sign of racism. But hey, thanks for the extra super chat. So
it's Greek, I think.
I will admit to mispronouncing your name. Clayton from Illinois says, Michael, did you really mean that all cops are criminals, or was that hyperbolic?
All cops are criminals. They're not all on the take. They're not all corrupt. But if you look at, there was this footage I'm sure you probably talked about in your show, Tim. I think it was Holland or Belgium, where there are people in a park, and there was like an older man, he's maybe 70, and there's a cop running by him on horseback, clubbing him over the head, and he was, why are you laughing?
It's a ridiculous story. It's crazy.
Oh, but I mean, it was extremely disturbing to see old people getting clubbed, and his head was smashed open. That's the good apple. The good apples aren't the ones on the take. They're the ones who smile and nod and follow orders, and those many of those orders are complete crimes. So when I say all cops are criminal, if you are enforcing a law that makes someone unsafe in their home and makes them unable to fulfill their Second Amendment rights, yes, you are a criminal. All cops are criminals.
This is what I find really funny. There was like some guy who argues with me on Facebook who clearly doesn't watch the show, and he's like, you just keep saying the same things. Your opinion never changes. It's just confirmation bias. And I was like,
that's not what confirmation bias means anyway.
There was a big change in my opinion after you said that on the show.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, my stuff on 2A has gone crazy because of the things you were saying.
I'll kind of second that.
I guess I'm an influencer now.
Absolutely.
Now I know it feels like.
So I guess you call you like a powerful social presence. You are very open to changing your mind. From the time that I've known you, we'll talk about things, and then I see in like 2 weeks you'll be like, yeah, you'll have different views on
if
things.
If it makes sense.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned that your right to bear arms shall not be infringed, and the police don't care, and they'll oppress your right in New York City. And I said, you're right about that. And so then my opinion on 2A got pretty, hey, okay, you know what? Felon gets out of prison, give him his gun.
Yeah.
The right shall not be infringed. It doesn't say unless you're a felon. It doesn't say, there's a lot of things it doesn't say.
But is it the argument that if they don't uphold a criminal law, like go take their guns away, that then they have to leave the force, so that just by being there, they're part of a corrupt system making them criminals? Or is it only when they actually enforce the illegal law?
There's so many laws that are complete crimes to enforce. I can't even get, like drug laws.
Absolutely.
This is the thing. Eric Garner, when conservatives often point out that he wasn't choked when I can't breathe, and he died because of a heart condition. It wasn't that he was actually physically choked by the police. Fine. The point is, if there's a man selling cigarettes and you feel comfortable walking up to him, putting your hands on him, and taking him away to a jail, you are the criminal.
That's absolutely, to me, insane. Like, dude, the guy was, what do they call them, singles?
Lucy's.
Lucy's.
And he goes, officers, I'm not bothering anyone. Leave me alone. He had it. He wasn't fighting them. He was resisting in the rest of the sense that he's like, I don't want to leave. Get your hands off me. He was huge. He wasn't hitting them. He wasn't putting them in danger. The only person in that whole situation who went to jail was the guy who filmed it.
Right. And that was crazy.
Why did he go to jail?
I mean, it just, to me, I don't want to get too conspiratorial, but it really sounded like there was retaliation. That's what it sounded like.
I mean, you've seen, I'm sure you've talked about this before, but I'm sure you've seen similar things in Occupy where the journalists who are covering it, the independent journalists, are the ones who are being targeted. Because they're showing things that the cathedral doesn't want.
What the city of New York does, it's brilliant. They issue press credentials from the NYPD.
Which is against the First Amendment.
Absolutely. And then you can't get a job at many of these news outlets unless you have it. And if you get it taken away, you can't work there anymore because you can't report. So what would happen is during the protest, the cop would be like, they would walk up to a journalist and say, if you don't leave right now, I take your pass. Yeah. And they go, bye-bye, and they'd leave. And then there was independent reporters
Those
like
cops
Luke
aren't
Rutkowski and me. Oh, absolutely.
I'm not talking to the audience. I mean, just think about it,
Luke Rutkowski, you guys know him, you love him. He did his video where he filmed one of the most notorious cops who would go after the press and things like that as like a nature documentary. This guy in the wild, and he would zoom in on him. And he saw it, and one day he was like, you're the guy who made that video about me on YouTube. And was like, I don't know what you're talking about. But the regular press couldn't do these things.
Right.
Because they'd lose their credentials.
And they're not interested because it doesn't further their narrative.
Dude, the ABC would pull up, walk out of the van, say, okay, here's the park, turn around and say, we're here at the park. Here's what happened. Have a nice day. Get back in the van and leave. Course. And that was journalism.
I was at Charlottesville while it was going down, and we were at Outback Steakhouse with some of the alt-right people. And the surreal aspect of what was a block away from us and how it was being presented on the news was such a red pill moment that you're looking out the window, then you're looking at the screen, and it's complete disparity.
Yeah. That was scary to me when I was in Sweden. The next experience.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah.
When all of the journalists aligned at the same time to claim, all of a sudden, they loved me, and then the moment we got off the highway and turned and went straight to Rinkeby, then they were like, uh-oh. And then every news outlet was like, Tim Pool's a liar, a manipulator. At the same time, I was
like, what's Rinkeby?
It's a poor neighborhood, a Somali migrant neighborhood. And so I was very much in line with their Potemkin village. The Green Party guy walks me around. Everything's nice. We explain, you know what? These reports are just not true. They're exaggerated. And then I did my job. I reached out to a bunch of other people. I talked to some crazy people, some regular people, some left, some right. And we went with this one local journalist. And then abruptly he was like, you want to go? Let's do it. Pulls off the highway. And then all of a sudden it was like, uh-oh. He's not supposed to be getting off that road. And then the media just aligns.
It's like the Truman Show.
Creepy.
It is like the Truman Show.
It was creepy. And we had people spying on us. We had people lurking around our hotels. We had to leave. All right, I got to read some more of these. We got Elevate Fitness Dallas says, Tim, wish me happy birthday. Happy birthday, Elevate Fitness Dallas. Thanks for the super chat. James S., I'm not sure I understand this one. He says, I love that when I came in, I see Michael Malice dressed like Clark Kent. And now at the end, he is Superman. I love him and I love you guys.
What is he talking about?
Yeah,
you
I'm not
are
sure
Superman to me.
You know what this is?
It's
No.
figurative.
It's this is Tim. You got trolled. These are the April Fool's people who get in the super chats. They make you to read nonsense, and then you look like a fool
I think
for reading this. Screw
no.
you.
You're kind of like Clark.
No. Hold on.
Because he's calling me a journalist. He's saying I'm one of the bad guys because Clark Kent was a newspaperman.
No,
this is his backdoor way of making fun of me.
He's complimenting you. He's saying that in the beginning he saw you as a regular guy, and by the end of the show he realizes that you're a hero who's fighting the good fight.
That was what I thought.
Okay,
yeah.
That makes more sense. Well, I still think you're not as bad as Trevor, but you're pretty terrible.
All right, we'll just read a couple more because my friends, I thank you all so much for the super chats. We just have so many coming in.
Thank you guys.
And all right, let's see. Patrick says, what worries you more, cancel culture or compliance culture?
What's compliance culture?
I guess he's saying, getting banned or the people who just give in and do what they're told.
I don't know what he means by worse, but in terms of which is more a threat to me, I'm in no danger of complying with anything. So it would be cancel. I don't think these two things are superable at all. I think they're very much compliance culture is cancel culture being implemented. I gotta say real quick, we got some more super chats. People, I think they're really digging your ideology. They must be big fans of anarchy, or anarchism. They must really agree with your ideas about defunding police and police being criminals, because all of a sudden they're saying things like, we got Crystal Mackey says, I walked away for 1 hour and suddenly your guest turns into Superman. This is what I get for walking away.
I mean, clearly your ideas are resonating with the audience to where they just
listen.
View you as a hero.
It's been tough growing up for me, being this farm boy in the middle of Kansas, and now I get to be here in Springfield, Illinois, with Tim Fool and all these other people. So it's kind of
right.
it's very humbling.
Mm-hmm. All right, official Jim says, you opened my eyes to politics, Tim. How would I go about trying to learn and understand more? Where should I start? I don't know. You can watch my show and then watch other shows. Watch Michael Malice's show. Watch people like Jimmy Dore, because Jimmy will give you a more leftist perspective, but he's a real guy. He's an honest guy.
Very red-pilled leftist.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is your
and he hates war.
Absolutely.
That's my criterion. Are you someone who, even if you're like, sometimes we have to have war, do you think this is really a very mixed blessing in the best of circumstances? Or are you like, we got to do it? This is the big divide for me.
Tim, when you get up in the morning, what's your methodology of sourcing news? Like, what are your first few steps?
I just start reading a bunch of news.
Like, do you have specific places you go?
Bunch of different news outlets, Twitter. So my Twitter feed is a collection of left and right and mainstream news sources. And so I scroll through that. As soon as I wake up, I'm like scrolling through all these stories.
There's a website that lets you, judging by your Twitter, what percent is right, left, and center?
I'm left.
You're left?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Mine was 30, 39, 41, and then 20% centrist. It was really cool.
It says the news you interact with.
Yeah, which means things you're making fun of as well. Yeah.
So here's the issue. I use NewsGuard on purpose to make a point, and that means I'm often fact-checking these certified sources and avoiding many conservative sources because NewsGuard is biased. So what ends up happening is, on this thing, it says I'm interacting with more mainstream or left-leaning stories, but in reality, it's just let me correct this. It was Ground News says Tim Pool interacts with left-wing stories, but in reality, it's just mainstream news sources. So you think about what that really means.
Right.
Because I follow a lot of conservatives, and I tweet a lot at conservatives about a lot of things, or I retweeted Ben Shapiro earlier. But the stories I tweet only come from that check mark, which is funny. So NewsGuard, if you're listening, take that into consideration about what that means about your service. The stories I interact with have to be certified by you because I'm trying to make a point, and then it claims I'm left biased, and I have a blind spot for the right, it says. There you go. All right, one more super chat. Garhent says, Tim, I respectfully disagree with you creating a network of you. What will work is for you to form a network with people like you, Crowder, Rubin, Gadsad, Weinsteins. That is how you win. Bigly. I'm not creating a network of me. I'm creating a network with a bunch of different shows.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to comedians about helping them do a show. There may be a comedian who is producing, anti-woke stuff, or just comedy that's just not in the culture war at all, just funny jokes, or maybe it's offensive. And we're going to give them an opportunity to make new content. We're going to grow. It's not going to be a network of me. It's going to be original movies with nothing to do with me. We're going to make this like you get an app and you open it, and there's going to be, a show with a bunch of different people. Maybe we'll do a Michael Malice comedy special.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Political comedy, something like that.
Yeah. Have you done? Do you do live comedy?
My first job, trying to be creative, was doing stand-up. This was a very long time ago. And because I had a friend who killed himself, and we basically, because we were so stressed about it, we made that night into a roast. I thought to myself, if I can do stand-up and get people to laugh, anyone can make jokes about sex or bitches be texting, whatever. If you can make people joke about things like suicide, then you're really talented. What I learned, and this is why I quit after 6 months, the same set that kills one night will walk the room the next.
Right.
And you have no control over what lands and what doesn't. And that was such a screw in my head so much I gave it up.
Well then, we'll see how this we'll see how this manifests. But the idea is, if you're a member at timcast.com, we're going to start producing a bunch of stuff. We're probably going to have gaming content, gaming reviews. We're probably going to have definitely the vlog stuff, but that'll be on YouTube as well. The goal is to just have a bunch of different people involved. And yes, you will get access to all these shows. The money that you are paying as a member of Timcast is going to be used to build culture. That's my plan. Part of it will be used, hopefully soon, to start development on an open source project. We'll see exactly how we can pull it off. I think it's ambitious, but I'd like to do it. That being said, my friends, smash the like button if you have not done that already. Show your support for the show. Subscribe. And maybe soon we will break 1 million subscribers on this channel with your support. You can follow me on all social media platforms at Timcast. My other YouTube channels are youtube.com/Timcast, youtube.com/TimcastNews. Make sure you go to timcast.com because we're going to have a bonus segment up around 11 p.m. with our good friend Michael Malice, and it's going to be fun and spicy. And we do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So thanks for hanging out. Michael, do you want to shout anything out?
Yes. We all talked about some funny things today, some serious issues, and we talked about support. So it's important to support the underwear that supports you.
Are you doing a promo? Oh, get out of here.
Underwear. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use promo code Malice20, they've got the dual pouch technology, and you could support the underwear that supports me, Bridget Fedesi, Dave Smith, and people like Louis J. Gomez, who will, won't make it in the when we come to the next future.
I gotta get them to send me a bunch of that stuff.
I have some for you. I brought some.
Oh, wonderful.
Beautiful.
So yeah,
Protects you
I want
from
a
sharks.
swag box.
sheathunderwear.com.
Well, I appreciate
And
you
I got to
chose-
tell you in all seriousness, this is made by an Iraq War vet.
Oh, cool.
And it's an independent businessman. So I'm glad. I love being able to promote a product.
Is it
that,
made in America?
I was made in the Ukraine. Where does it say? Yeah. Designed in America. And the thing is, if it's camo, it makes your junk even more invisible.
Yeah, I think it protects you from sharks, right? Maybe not that particular underwear. I don't want to make any false
All
claims.
right.
I love it.
I was talking to him. I'm like, I wonder if I'm going to be able to pull this off. And you set me up perfectly.
Ah.
Oh, and no, in all seriousness, the Anarchist Handbook is going to be done in the next couple of weeks, and that'll be out, and I'm sure I can come back and talk about it.
You know, I would like to point out how cut you look.
Oh.
Very
Yes.
ripped.
Oh,
I like
heck
what you've
yeah.
done with the body.
Thank you, sir.
very muscular.
I'm on a cut.
For a 63-year-old, it's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
looking
you're
good.
towing the line.
Adrenochrome.
Oh gosh.
No,
Not just a clever myth.
All right.
Yeah, you guys can also follow me at IanCrossland.net, which is my website, and you can find my. It's
Not that Boy Scout
not
nonsense.
Right.
I tried.
That other guy.
I waited to buy.com for a few months after I started making YouTube videos, and someone snagged it. So don't wait. Don't hesitate.
Or if you hate someone, buy their domain name and forward it. I've done that trick several times.
Listen to the man.
I love it. I love
The
it.
Superman.
Michael is the master troll, and I love having him on. I have two things to say. I want to wish a happy birthday to my pal Brenda. Her
Aw.
birthday's today, April Fool's Day. Her dad must have been shocked when her mom was in the hospital. He's like, no, I don't believe it. And the second is that I figured out the mystery of what this term was that this hire liked so much about Michael Malice.
Oh.
It was when Michael Malice explained to Lex Friedman what tits or GTFO means. So there you go.
Now, that sounded like Lex Luthor.
Lex,
I'm more of a brainiac, please.
He doesn't laugh, though.
Lex Friedman.
That's
I love
true.
it.
He doesn't.
all.
Yeah, so that solved that
Translation.
mystery. I'm very happy that I could help. I am Sour Patch Lids on Twitter and Minds, and Real Sour Patch Lids on Gab and Instagram.
Make sure you smash that like button before you go, and we will see you all in the exclusive members-only segment at timcast.com at about 11. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you there.
Bye, guys.